Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to this evening's council meeting. My name is Councillor Paul de Moldenberg and I'm the Lord Mayor of Westminster. In order to ensure the sound quality in the chamber is the best it can be, please try and speak toward the microphone nearest to you and ensure that any papers or devices are not in the way of the microphone picking up your voice. We are live streaming this meeting and therefore the microphones will be active when members are speaking and the cameras will be broadcasting until the meeting closes. A list of all members who are present will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. As this will be a busy meeting, I would like to remind members to be as succinct as possible in your speeches and questions so that we can cover all the items we need to. Before we start the formal proceedings, I would like to make a few announcements. Firstly, can I congratulate Councillors Cara Sanquest and Max Sullivan on the birth of their daughter, Nora, and also congratulate Councillor Hamza Tuzali and his wife, Muna, on the birth of their son, Musa. I'd also like to congratulate former Maida Vale councillor David Pitt-Watson on his peerage. However, I'm saddened to share that the former mace bearer, Maurice O'Corium, passed away before Christmas. Maurice started his career at the City Council in the post room and rose to be senior mace bearer. He retired from the council 20 years ago in 2006. Can I ask you now to all join me in standing for a minute's silence to remember Maurice? Thank you. We now move to the first item on the agenda. Agenda item 1, appointment of relief chair. As I may need to vacate the chair during the meeting, I propose that Councillor Regan Hook be chosen to take the chair as necessary. May I please have a seconder for my motion? Councillor Iman Les has seconded my motion that Councillor Hook chairs the meeting as necessary. Unless any member objects, the motion will be deemed to be carried. If anybody has an objection, please say so now. Thank you. Councillor Hook, please join me on the dais. Agenda item 2, minutes from previous meeting. Unless any member wishes to raise a point of order relating to the accuracy of the minutes, I will consider that members are content that I sign the minutes of the last meeting. Please state now if you wish to raise a point of order. Thank you. The minutes are agreed, and I will sign them. Agenda item 3, Lord Mayor's communications. These are set out in the meeting papers. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. It is necessary to declare any interest in relation to the issues on which there will be a vote. These items were set out along the list of speakers on the order paper. Members need to declare an interest in the items selected for debate if they are speaking in that debate. All members and officers in attendance were asked to identify in advance of the meeting if they have an interest to declare. Please note that there is no need to declare an interest purely on account of being a council tax payer, as part of the voting on the report in agenda item 12. However, if anyone has any other disclosable pecuniary interests or any other significant interests to declare, please do so now. Thank you. Agenda item 5, there is no statement on urgent matters. Agenda item 6, councillor presented petitions. I'm not aware of any petitions. However, if anyone has one they would like to present, please mention this now. Thank you. Agenda item 7, public participation. Each member of the public selected for this item and here this evening has submitted a question which they will present to the relevant cabinet member. They will have up to 2 minutes to speak, then the relevant cabinet member will have up to 2 minutes to respond. Can I ask our speakers that when you are presenting your question, you adhere to the wording you submitted, which you have a copy of? Can I also ask cabinet members who are responding to be succinct in your responses? There will be no right of reply, and I ask that once speakers have received their response, they return to their seats. All questions asked and responses provided will be made available on the Council's website in the days after the meeting. Can I now ask Rhys Thomas to join us at the front of the chamber to ask his question?
Thank you. I've been meeting with local groups in Harrow Road who are incredibly passionate about the work they do, many of whom are now supported by the Community Priorities Programme. Could the Cabinet member outline how these grants are being specifically used to tackle health inequalities in the ward, and how the new focus on data and evaluation ensures that this support is reaching the residents who need it most?
Thank you. I now ask the Cabinet Member for Communities, Councillor Consia Albert, to respond.
Thank you, Rhys, for your question. And it's really great to hear that you've been able to firsthand see how much important work the Council's Community Priorities Programme funds. The Community Priorities Programme is the Council's flagship participatory grants programme, and it tackles health inequalities by funding activities which target the wider social determinants of health in some of Westminster's most deprived wards, in line with the Council's 2035 ambitions and the Marmot Principles. What this means is that rather than focusing on clinical services, the CPP invests in a wide range of projects, from music therapy to memory cafes, parenting classes to peer support. The community-led interventions are through VCX groups mostly. They address these wider determinants of health, and they carry through preventative activities and address things like social isolation, mental well-being, physical inactivity, and cost of living pressures, which in turn can relieve some of the pressures on clinical services. The programme is supported by a robust monitoring and evaluation framework, and what we are seeing so far is really positive. All funded projects are required to collect consistent data on who they are reaching, where participants live, what activities are delivered, and what outcomes are achieved, using a shared digital monitoring system. This enables the Council to track reach and impact at ward level and across priority groups, rather than relying on activity counts or anecdotal evidence. First of all, We can see that the programme is successfully reaching groups that experience the poorest health outcomes from what the data is telling us about who is taking part in the activities. Now in its third round, 66% of participants so far have been from global majority backgrounds, 63% are women, and we are seeing strong engagement levels from older residents, including those aged over 70 and people living with multiple disadvantages. We also know that CPP-funded activities are really improving the lives of those who access them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, you may now return to your seat. Can I now ask Barbara Dingle to join us at the front of the chamber to ask her question? Good evening, Barbara.
Thank you, and good evening. This is my question. What is the Council doing to prevent and reduce the number of dangerous and dockless bikes blocking our pavements? In windy weather, I encounter numerous bikes lying flat on the pavement, causing a dangerous obstruction. Enforcement seems to be inadequate. Thank you.
Thank you. I now ask the Cabinet Member for Streets, Councillor Max Sullivan, to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Barbara, for coming to ask your question tonight. I think, just say again, I think it's great that this administration introduced the opportunity for members of the public to come and ask these questions, which has never been possible until this administration. I think it's really good that people come to these meetings and have their voices heard and have their questions answered directly by the responsible Cabinet members. You're absolutely right that badly parked and knocked over bikes on the pavement are a huge accessibility problem. Everybody needs our pavements. Every journey starts and ends on the pavement, and it's a huge accessibility problem for all people, but particularly older people, people with mobility issues, children, buggies, scooters, wheelchairs. It's a massive issue, and obviously Westminster, we're very keen to continue to keep our pavements clear. We know that the growth in e-bikes has led to a massive increase in the number of bikes that have been part of that pavement obstruction problem. In the back end of the summer of last year, there were over 1 million trips made on dockless bikes in Westminster. And we know that when we were elected in May 2022, there were no arrangements with operators, there were no parking bays on the street. We now have around 380 parking bays. So many more of those bikes are being parked properly, but I agree with you completely that not enough is being done by the operators yet to bring those bikes under control. Which is why late last year we became the first council in the country to issue on-the-spot fines to operators Lyman Forest, financially penalising them for not managing their fleets properly, and we are seeing some increased activity off the back of that, which I hope will continue. Ahead of, which is crucial, regulation from the government. This is an unregulated market. The government are going to regulate it through the devolution bill. That will give us the powers we need, and other boroughs the powers they need to curb this problem more permanently. But in the meantime, we will continue to issue fines, and please report issues to us, because that intelligence is really useful for the team on the ground who are out there issuing fines. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dingle, you may now return to your seat. Thank you. Can I now ask Celia Ansdell to join us at the front of the chamber to ask her question? Good evening, Celia. Please ask your question.
Thank you. Why is the Council not standing up for Westminster residents in opposing strongly the pedestrianisation of Oxford Street? The proposed pedestrianisation will seriously impact on residents, particularly the disabled, the old, and parents with babies who find it difficult or impossible to use the tube.
Thank you, Celia. I will now ask the Cabinet Member for Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Jeff Barraclough, to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Celia, for asking the question. It's a very good question, because I understand why this issue matters so much to the residents who live in and around the West End, particularly disabled people, older people, parents with young children, for whom the tube is often not a realistic option to travel. And it's no secret that we don't believe that pedestrianisation is the right option for Oxford Street. But mayors have powers to do these things. It's the law of the land, and we respect the constitution of our country. This council faced a choice. We could have disengaged, wasting public money on legal challenges with little prospect of success, or we could stay at the table and fight for the best possible outcome for Westminster's residents and our businesses. So we chose to stand up for residents by engaging, and as a result of that engagement, we secured a number of important concessions. The area covered by the Merrill Development Corporation is much reduced. We have 3 seats on the board rather than 1. Traffic will carry on flowing from IKEA to Tottenham Court Road, protecting Fitzrovia and Soho from displaced traffic. And Westminster will retain strategic SIL payments, employment skills funding and carbon offset from new development. These outcomes matter. They give this council a much stronger influence over decisions that directly affect our communities, and much more than if we'd walked away. So we're now working with Transport for London, the MDC, local landowners and residents groups to ensure any changes are designed and managed properly. And I'll pay tribute to Councillor Lilly, who's done a lot of work in the West End, broking between TfL and residents groups to make sure their voices are heard.
What about the other 2 West End councillors?
They didn't come to the meeting, Tony.
We weren't invited to that.
Thank you. This is not a debate. This is answering a question.
Councillor Lilly called a meeting with TfL and local residents, and the other 2 councillors didn't come along. We are now working with Transport for London. So that's why we responded in detail to TfL's recent consultation listing many serious concerns, particularly around security and street management, but also very specifically about accessibility, including step-free routes, tactile paving, drop curves, safe crossings, access to buses, taxis and toilets, and how disabled people, older residents and parents with buggies can get and move along Oxford Street from one end to the other. We strongly oppose, as you do, Celia, the proposed changes to bus routes 7 and 94 to provide vital access to Oxford Street and wider West End locations for those who cannot use the tube. And I fully recognise the strength and feeling in our community. But Oxford Street is going to change. Our role as your representatives is not to walk away and snipe from the sidelines, but to stay in the room and fight for residents, especially those who would otherwise be overlooked.
Thank you, Councillor Barraclough.
Yes. Thank you very much.
You may now return to your seat. And finally, can I ask Michael Murray to join us at the front of the chamber to ask his question? Good evening, Michael.
Hi, good evening. Go ahead.
Please ask your question.
Following a recent ASB case review and officer updates, residents have been informed that 2 of the named proposed CCTV cameras have been approved but are located away from the Keats House, Tyrrell House and Hungerford House area where the antisocial behaviour is concentrated. The remaining columns covering this location are subject to further testing and a proposed swap from column 111 to 112. Can the Cabinet Member for Public Protection confirm when a decision will be taken on the CCTV covering the Keats House area, what the expected timeline is for resolving the outstanding testing or column change, and what interim measures are being put in place to protect residents while this process continues?
Thank you. I now ask the Cabinet Member for Children and Public Protection, Councillor Aisha Lest, to respond.
Thank you for your question, Michael. As you say, there are 9 cameras being considered, 2 of which are locations immediately suitable for CCTV and are being progressed. The remaining 7 potential locations require structural surveys to ensure that the columns are suitable to hold the weight of the cameras. These assessments should be completed in the next few weeks. Whilst we wait for this, the range of council services dealing with ASB remain in place, including the local PPL neighbourhood teams, Westminster Housing colleagues and the local Safer Neighbourhood teams. We've also implemented a public space protection order to tackle on-street ASB in South Westminster. Joint work with the police across the area has resulted in multiple arrests and ASB enforcement actions, with 22 arrests and convictions and almost 100 community protection warnings and notices served. In Churchill Gardens, the Housing ASB team are engaging in additional door knocks to some blocks, and residents are well as well as additional security patrolling. Officers are working with the local police team and have also increased engagement with staff from local youth groups. Thank you again for your question. I'll be monitoring the progress of this CCTV assessments and hope that the additional cameras will be in place soon. We will also continue to review camera placements in order to ensure our coverage is most effective. Thank you once again, Michael.
Thank you. Mr. Murray, you may now return to your seat. Okay, that was the last question in this item. Thank you to all the members of the public for taking time to participate this evening. If you'd like to stay for the remainder of the meeting, you're very at liberty to do so, but I can see that you're already packing your bags. So I won't finish this sentence, but thank you again for your attendance. Agenda item 8, questions. There are 45 minutes for questions. Will all members wishing to ask a question please indicate now and continue doing so until your request has been noted by the Chief Executive and Executive Director of Corporate Services. Please remember that questions may be asked of a Cabinet member or a committee chair. I will call members who indicated that they wish to ask a question after Councillor Swaddle has asked his 3 questions. Questions and responses should be, and this is underlined in bold, brief. You hear that? Brief. Thank you. Councillor Swaddle, please now ask the first of your 3 questions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My first question is for the leader. Has he or the council asked the Mayor for a by-postcode breakdown of the responses to the Mayor's consultation on Oxford Street that the Mayor used to justify plans to pedestrianise Oxford Street?
Thank you very much. We have, sorry, does that relate to the car-free day previously? Or
The consultation that was justified
yeah,
at the 6,700 odd.
So, yes, as you will be able to see from our consultation response that has been published on the Council's website today, we have robustly raised a lot of concerns around the scheme. Our officers have been working with TfL to maximise the amount of data that is available in relation to their proposals for the scheme, and we will continue to raise whatever questions that are necessary.
Supplementary, Councillor Swaddle?
Shame, you seem to consult on almost everything except this, and look at data. As the Mayor has not released the data, I've been conducting my own referendum, with nearly 1,000 people responding, and of those who are in Westminster, nearly 80% have said they don't think pedestrianisation will work. Will this council finally step up and fight for residents' views? They understand the real challenges of Oxford Street, and will he present our data to the Mayor and the MDC to show the strength of feeling?
I don't think, thank you, Lord Mayor, I don't think anyone is under any illusions that the local strength of feeling is absolutely clear. That is why our proposals for Oxford Street retained bus access for the full length of the street. We know that local people have real concerns about this. This is not a matter of confusion. Ultimately, the Mayor operating on a London level weighs the views of other Londoners in a different way to how Westminster would in its own scheme. That is the reality of how those consultation processes work. We are clear that there are strong local concerns about the proposals, which is why we've engaged intensively with local residents groups, working with our ward councillors, working with all sorts of different local stakeholders to make sure their voices are heard in response to this scheme. We know that the Mayor has set out his broad intentions for the scheme, but we are in the room working at all levels to try and make sure that the real practical challenges posed by the scheme are understood, and that wherever possible, mitigations take place along the lines that Councillor Barraclough has said. We are clear that local people in the immediate environs are significantly impacted and they will need to be protected. We know that there are people, particularly further afield in Westminster, who have mobility issues who will face challenges if the bus changes go ahead, which is why we are robustly setting out those concerns on behalf of local people, and we urge TfL to listen to them.
Thank you. Your second question, Councillor Swaddle.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The government plans to cut funding to Westminster through their so-called fairer funding settlement. and expects our residents to foot the bill by allowing a massive increase in council tax. Will the leader join me in writing to the government to condemn this fairer funding, which would lead to council tax rises of potentially 75% over 4 years?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. We have already made our views very, very clear to central government. We are obviously disappointed in the current settlement. We, however, have set out clear plans for how to deal with this at a local level. We have, a transformation programme in place that is going to reimagine how our services are delivered here, which will also deliver substantial savings. We are getting the temporary accommodation bill down. We are delivering, as we do every year, substantial departmental savings to make sure that we are responding in the most efficient way possible. And most importantly, at the moment for Westminster as a borough, is we are working directly to government with Central London Forward, with London councils and with other cities around the UK to make the case for strong levels of local retention of the overnight visitor levy, which will be crucial to ensuring the services that we provide to the visitor and commuter economy are, the amounts that Westminster currently pays is fully reflected by this new levy and enables us to continue to deliver, to support the growth agenda nationally, as well as providing excellent services to our residents. We have already made very clear that the settlement was not what we believe was in the best interest of the residents of Westminster. We have made progress in certain areas, particularly in relation to the way in which deprivation was measured within the scheme, but we are conscious that there are challenges posed by the settlement, but which is why we are taking a robust plan at a local level to make sure we are dealing with it in the most effective way possible.
Supplementary, Councillor Swaddle.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Will the leader be honest with the people of Westminster and say that, yes, Labour are planning to increase your council tax by 75% over 4 years?
We can be absolutely clear that that is not our plan. We are going to, as we are setting out through the budget process, we have a clear approach to avoid those measures because we have run an efficient council, because we have taken this approach to transformation, because we are getting the temporary accommodation bill down, because we are continuing that approach to departmental savings, and because we're fighting the corner of local residents and this city in the debates nationally about the overnight visitor levy. We could, I appreciate that Councillor Swaddle would take a different approach, but we are working to make sure that in that next phase around the overnight visitor levy, the voices of Westminster are heard, which will make a substantial difference to Westminster's budget position as set out in the papers that you will see shortly.
Thank you. Your third question, Councillor Swaddle.
Yes, Lord Mayor. And finally, for the leader. At the last council meeting, with much fanfare, Labour announced they are fining dockless bike operators for badly parked bikes, claiming it could generate over £1 million a year in fines. In reality, less than 700 fines have been issued over November, December and January, and only in a few wards. Of these, only 7,600 has actually been paid. Nothing being paid by one major operator. A long way off the £1 million announced. Can the leader confirm if all Labour policy announcements will be so successful?
Again, we are very clear that this is a proposal to change behaviour, and Councillor Sullivan is obviously the Cabinet member responsible for delivering this, and he can provide you with the data as necessary. But we are working to put all the pressure possible on the operators, and this finding system is the first of its kind from a local authority, and we think it is already showing significant changes in terms of behaviour. Now, obviously, we're working to make sure that we get as much money as possible out of the different providers who have been charged, and we know that Councillor Sullivan and his officers are working to ensure that those fines are paid. So obviously, not everything immediately comes straight into our coffers at once, but ultimately, Councillor Sullivan set out the potential maximum that it could raise, but what we actually want is behaviour to change. This is the point of this. It's not a money-generating exercise. It is a behaviour change exercise. And if that behaviour changes because we're providing those extra bays on the streets, or because we're delivering these fines, or because we're working through other ways to put pressure on the providers, that is what will ultimately make the difference in the short term. But what will really make the difference is because this government has acted in a way that the previous government singularly failed to do, is to give the powers to local government through the devolution bill to regulate e-bikes. We all remember how long it took for the previous government to deliver on pedicabs. We were talking about it for 10, maybe 15 years. This government put it in its first... Certainly since 2010, it was being talked about for a very long time.
Okay.
But the fundamental point is, but it took so long to happen. And the reality is the powers are coming in, in the first term. That's a lot quicker.
Your supplementary, Councillor Swaddle.
Great example.
I somehow doubt that I'll get a positive answer to this one, but never mind. Will the leader admit they got it wrong and that Westminster needs to adopt our policy of removing badly parked bikes from the streets that we've been calling for the last 3 years?
Councillor Hugg.
So, as Councillor Ordle has been informed multiple times, very clearly, we have put provisions in place for the operators to remove the bikes. We retain the ability to remove bikes in extremis. We did that right back at the beginning, which helped bring the operators to the table. We are not overburdened with spare depot space in Westminster, as he well knows, and it is an incredibly challenging and expensive and legally fraught thing to do, as he suggests, which is why no other London borough has done it at scale. This is the point, which is why...
Other boroughs are doing it.
Well, we have done it too, but they have done it in
You're not
very
doing
patchy
fines
ways.
at scale.
The reality is the scale. No other London authority has done anything like the scale of fines of removals as we have done fines. That's very true. As you said, we did a small number of removals. A number of other authorities have done a small number of removals. But the reality is we've put in fines at a scale far beyond that, and those are ultimately changing behaviour alongside the other measures that we set out.
Thank you. Now I ask councillors to ask questions. Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. That was unexpected. My question is to the Cabinet Member for Communities. In this day and age, digital inclusion can either increase or reduce inequalities for many of our residents, including, I feel, the older resident is more likely to be disadvantaged if they haven't been trained. I'd like to know, if possible, what we are doing to engage better with our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McAllister, for that question. Enabling residents and businesses to be able to get in touch with the council was a key Fairer Westminster commitment. And so over the past few years, we've prioritised making it even easier for people to reach us. Since the launch of the Commonplace platform in October 2023, we have launched over 20 consultations and engagement projects, making it much easier for residents and businesses to get in touch. In just over 2 years, we've had 25,000 responses to a wide array of consultations, from highway cycle schemes to housing projects. We know that Commonplace is just one of the tools we have to speak to residents, but that not everyone is able to use it. We are always tracking who's responding and know which demographics we are keen to hear from more. And the Commonplace team are working to engage the people we hear less from. We've also invested in our Report It platform to make it much more intuitive for those who aren't technologically whizzes to use them. Using AI technology, users can now upload an image and have the system automatically recognize the type of issue and location, so less manual input is needed. Combined with simpler maps, redesigned forms, and a built-in chatbot, it now takes users an average of just 88 seconds to submit a report, which has cut reporting an issue by almost half the previous time. More than 21,000 users who had never reported an issue before have used the tool since it was made available earlier this year, demonstrating its intuitiveness and ease of use. However, we know that there are some residents who simply don't want to use digital tools to contact us. And so at the end of last year, we made a lot of changes in our contact centre to make it easier than ever for residents, businesses and visitors to get in touch. Our new, smarter system is helping our contact centre staff answer questions faster and more smoothly, and this improved call handling experience means staff can answer questions more quickly and efficiently, meaning residents are able to get answers from us more quickly. It's really important for residents and businesses to have a whole range of tools to contact us, and we've made it happen.
Thank you, Councillor Albert.
Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you, Lord.
Thank you. Councillor Ote Osaka.
For the Cabinet Member for Housing, why does tenant satisfaction in Westminster housing estates regarding repairs and repair times remain at 63%, leaving Westminster mid-table in London despite repeated organisational change?
Councillor Begum.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I am actually really surprised by that question because our repairs performance has consistently improved in the last few years. Our emergency repairs have got 95% satisfaction, and we've done, while I absolutely acknowledge that some of our residents do have issues with repairs, we have worked really hard to improve our repair service, and we've got the lowest work in progress we've ever had, with just over 2,000 jobs. So yeah, I'm actually quite surprised by that question.
You have a supplementary?
Yes, please. Thank you, Lord Mayor. How does the Cabinet Member explain materially higher repair satisfaction in boroughs facing similar pressures but operating more traditional outsourced contracts? Examples include Waltham Forest, Kingston upon Thames, and Hackney, as well as inner city comparators like Manchester.
Thank you. Councillor Begum.
So I haven't done any benchmarking against other councils, but when the regulator of social housing, we have done benchmarking. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. And when we had the regulator of social housing, we got a C1. One of the things that they were impressed about was the plans we had around repairs. I've been working with the contractors that I inherited in under the former administration, and I think we've had a lot more oversight and management over our contracts, and I think we've done a really good job under the circumstances, and I'm really excited to bring the strategic alliance model where we will have more oversight, accountability and management over our contractors, and a lot more collaboration.
Thank you. Councillor Tuzal.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is to the Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Renters. The full business case for Ebury Bridge Phase 2 has just been recently approved by Cabinet. Are you able to tell us what this project will deliver and the expected timeline?
Yes, thank you. So I would very much want to put my thanks on record to the council teams involved in developing the Phase 2 full business case. It was a massive cross-council effort, and the level of detail and rigour applied was incredibly impressive. In terms of what Phase 2 will deliver, though, it will provide 334 high-quality new homes across 5 buildings, of which 228 of them will be for social rent. That's right.
28?
That is right. This phase of the scheme will deliver 75% affordable housing, and that builds on the 226 homes, including 109 homes for social rent in Phase 1. But of course, it isn't just about building houses. Phase 2 will create a revitalised neighbourhood environment, including new public realm, high-quality green and play spaces, an enhanced streetscape, and on-site community space, supporting a vibrant mixed-use neighbourhood. All buildings will be designed to high sustainability standards with energy-efficient construction and low-carbon systems. And, subject to the approval of the Gateway 2 submission to the Building Safety Regulator, main construction works are anticipated to begin this year, with completion expected in 2029.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm extremely pleased to see that 75% will be affordable, especially knowing how we need affordable housing is in Westminster. How has this changed since the last administration?
A very good question. So, can you believe, on the whole of the Ebury Bridge scheme, the previous administration had planned just 41 new social homes?
Shame.
I know. At a time when we all know that housing waiting lists are soaring. We're now set to deliver 178 new homes for social rent. And that's very much thanks in part to the funding we secured from the Mayor of London. Money that was bewilderingly turned down by the previous administration.
It was left on the table.
Crazy.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. But so just to summarise, in addition to the 198 social rent reprovisions, this administration is delivering homes at social rent for an additional 137 families in Westminster, more than was previously planned. And I, for one, would not want to see those families put in jeopardy if the Tories ever got their hands back on this scheme.
Councillor Fitzpaul, you ask your question, please.
My question is for the Cabinet Member for Housing Services. What was the reason for delaying the decision on PDHU until later in 2026? Good question. May the 7th?
Surely for your question. The decision making has been delayed, but that doesn't mean that the project has stopped. We will still be continuing with the project, looking into the shortlisted options as well as the 2 direct electric options that we've now added in. So apart from the decision making, the project is still running.
Supplementary, Councillor?
I'm not sure I got an answer there, but will the Cabinet Member continue with the residents' working meetings to update them on progress since last year?
So we are going to be looking at our engagement process. We are definitely going to be, we will definitely carry on working with the resident technical working group, and we will increase our engagement with our leaseholders, tenants, and our commercial stakeholders.
Thank you. Councillor Bush.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is to the Cabinet Member for Streets sitting to my right. Thank you very much. It's really good that Westminster's recycling rate continues to rise, but can you assure us that none of Westminster's recycling, including WE Recycling, ends up in the vast piles of waste that afflict poor residents of countries such as Ghana, Nigeria and India? Please.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you for your question. It feels a bit ridiculous to stand up when I'm sitting next to you. Yes, I can confirm that all of the electrical waste that is collected by the council is recycled within the UK, and that is at a site in Sittingbourne in Kent, and that. Overall, recycling collected, which is recycled within the UK, is currently sits at 87%, with the remainder being made up of materials where there's little demand or availability for recycling within the UK, such as bales of cardboard. We do also make sure that when rewarding contract to process and sell recycled materials, that we prioritise bids that propose local end markets, and that we undertake due diligence, because I'm aware that there can be, there have been reports and documentaries about companies that fail to meet industry standards. So we hold our suppliers to account on that. You mentioned that the council's recycling rate is rising. It is, and that's good. 2 things that have helped with that recently: this administration's completion of the citywide rollout of separate food waste collection, which has resulted in 7,400 tonnes diverted from incineration just since April, and the start of simpler recycling legislation in March last year, which requires smaller businesses with 10 plus employees to recycle more, and those 2 things are currently the things that are driving an increase in the recycling rate. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Bush.
Just briefly, what exactly is done to ensure that the overseas restriction is actually enforced? Have you got any examples of how that's actually carried out? Or, I'm sure we trust officers, but it would be good to know.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. As I said, in terms of the bids for awarding contract, we undertake due diligence checks. I'd be happy to get more detail from you on that. We also do provide information on our website about where all of our recycling goes in terms of its final destination. So I'd be happy to share that information with you afterwards. But yeah, we're making every effort that we can to make sure that what we're being told about the where our waste ends up is actually is correct and true. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That's my last ever question in full council, so it's quite a satisfactory answer.
And a very good one too. Councillor Robertson.
you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is to the Cabinet Member for Public Protection. As she knows, almost every weekend, hundreds of cars from around the country come into the centre of our city, particularly Knightsbridge in my ward and St James and West End, and perform high-speed car chases and highly dangerous car stunts, donuts and the rest of it. She also knows that last summer I worked very closely with the police to collect impact statements across the city and including from organisations like the Royal Albert Hall, Imperial College, so that we could apply for an injunction to make this illegal, as Enfield have done, and stamp it out in Westminster. Please could she update me on the timing of where we've got with that?
Robertson. We continue to enforce existing PSPOs along the Exhibition Road and Pall Mall and Waterloo Place. It's a nuisance, I agree, it's awful. We've also issued, so far we've issued 393 penalty notices that were issued last year. The PSPOs for that area will run for 3 years and then may be renewed depending on need. Totally understand your frustrations from your residents and businesses that are around there. I will come back with timelines on the other bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have to admit, I am frustrated on this one. I have been raising it in this chamber for over a year, and all the time, these car meets continue putting our residents and the visitors to our city at risk. The PSBOs, which were introduced by me in 2021, unfortunately are having very limited impact. The impact statements have sat with legal for 5 months. When are we going to apply for this injunction, which would enable the police to enforce, to stamp this out, which would stop this menace and keep our residents safe?
As you know, Councillor Robertson, the street is split in two, so it's not just us, it's Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea and the police, and I will come back with you. Come back to you.
On the injunction application, which
I will come back to you on dates and timeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Toki.
My question to the Cabinet Member for Housing. The Council has made visible progress supporting people rough sleeping. What further steps are you next planning to prevent people becoming homeless in the first place?
Councillor Bengal.
Thank you, Councillor Hawking. Preventing homelessness is one of our top priorities in Westminster, and the Labour administration has made real progress through strong leadership and targeted investment. Our new homelessness and rough sleeping strategy sets out a clear plan to prevent people from reaching crisis point, taking a person-centred and trauma-informed approach. We have strengthened our housing solution service with 106 staff now insourced and a further 50 joining us soon, giving us greater control and flexibility to intervene early and support residents before they become homeless. From next year, a new operating structure will provide clearer accountability, faster responses, and more efficient services across the borough. We have expanded our Housing First programme, delivering 20 new self-contained flats for former rough sleepers, alongside intensive support to help people sustain their homes. And our street-based integrated team works closely with outreach services to support people sleeping rough. And through this team, Housing also collaborates closely with public protection and licensing to address safety concerns and provide joined-up support on the ground. Alongside proactive management of temporary accommodation, these measures ensure we move from simply responding to homelessness to preventing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Toki.
Thank you. How is the Council working with other departments to ensure support is joined up and sustained?
So preventing homelessness requires a coordinated whole system approach, and the administration has worked hard to make that happen in Westminster. Housing works closely with adult and children's adult social care, children's social care, health services, employment support and community safety teams, ensuring residents receive holistic and timely support. The Council also partners with local charities, voluntary organisations and community groups to provide wraparound services for those with complex needs. Again, our street-based integrated team ensures that outreach and housing services are closely aligned, and through the street-based integrated team, Housing works Housing works closely with public protection and licensing, helping to provide coordinated support, maintain safety and engage with residents in public spaces. By integrating teams, removing silos and embedding clear accountability, we can provide sustained, effective interventions. Thanks to the investment, including over 8 million in rough sleeping initiatives, alongside the Homelessness Prevention Grant and Rough Sleeping Prevention and Recovery Grant, Westminster will continue to push for more support nationally to tackle rough sleeping, while ensuring residents receive the help they need to find and sustain stable homes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you very much. My question is the Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Renters. The Council will be aware now that we broke the news in December of last year with LBC Radio that £27 million.
No, let him ask the question.
Treat this seriously.
Let him ask the question.
£27 million had been wasted because you contracted with a company that was on the verge of insolvency. Now, the Cabinet Member has been forced to go out into the public domain and defend this. So my question is, for the Cabinet Member, is it her case that her predecessor and Councillor Boothroyd did or did not have all relevant information available to them when they contracted with Jeffrey Osborne in September 2022?
Councillor Ormsby.
No, thank you. So I just want to set some context here because the Labour administration took over these very challenging schemes which had been started under the previous administration. And I want to say the resilience, commitment and collaborative effort from the team and our new contractor has now meant that despite the mess that we inherited, we will be delivering 64 units of social rent and they will very much shortly be completed. We all know that the real reason for this attack is to undermine our achievements as a leading developer of council homes.
People's Republic of Westminster. People's Republic of Westminster.
This Labour Council is now the 5th biggest builder of council homes in the country, and we will not allow the Conservative opposition to stop us building more council homes for local people. Before I answer your question, I do want to add, Councillor Fisher, throughout this period, you were Chair of the Budget Scrutiny Task Group, Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Chair of the Housing and Regeneration Policy Committee.
I was always the Chair of your
and
meetings.
not once did you raise any concerns or call this decision in, despite now saying that events were foreseeable. It is a classic case of Captain Hindsight.
Absolute nonsense.
Nevertheless, now we are here and I've got the mic, I would like to put this on record and outline the facts of this case. It was in 2018, under the previous administration, where the strategic outline case for this was approved. It was in 2020, again, under the previous administration, where the council began its contractual relationship with Jeffrey Osborne.
And what happened in September
It
2022?
was again in 2021, under the previous administration,
In September
when a credit monitoring
2022.
report flagged up a change in the risk of failure from 91 to 72. This was noted by my Conservative predecessor, but of course at that point there was no suggestion of moving away from a contractual relationship with Jeffrey Osborne. The Conservatives also continued to engage with Jeffrey Osborne across a number of sites across Westminster, and it was after the election in 2022 when, of course, the Conservatives lost control of the council due to the public recognition of their appalling mismanagement, that my predecessor, Councillor Noble, as in alignment with the trajectory set out under the previous administration, awarded the main works contract to Jeffrey Osborne. It must be noted at that point that the credit rating for Jeffrey Osborne had in fact recovered. Unfortunately, in April 2024, due to the chaos, as we all know, caused by the Liz Truss mini-budget...
Osborne said. Nonsense. They know more than you do.
If you let me finish, as Jeffrey Osborne themselves said in their own report, but due to the Liz Truss mini-budget, they went into administration and works unfortunately stopped. The council acted swiftly to secure the sites, and by October, we had secured a new contractor to take over the works. Many other local authorities still have sites unfinished after supplier insolvency in this challenging market, and it was Labour's swift action and negotiating skills which allowed us to secure another contractor to take on the works. Of course, I know what happened here is unfortunate. I know that any money wasted is money that I can't invest in building more social housing. However, It was the Conservatives who were the architects and authors of this situation and should take full responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
have a supplementary, Councillor?
I may well do, Lord Mayor, I may well do. I think it's astonishing, it's laughable, in fact, that Cabinet members don't want to take responsibility, but they are willing to say that chairmen of high-level budget scrutiny task groups should. Councillor Williams, beware for future, just for your benefit. Now, it's clear, isn't it, that in fact Cabinet members don't even have the available public information at their hands now, because you blame it on the mini-budget from Liz Truss, which of course was not in September 2022. The publicly available information proves that the finance director of Jeffrey Osborne was saying in September 2022 that they were in dire financial circumstances. So it's clear, isn't it, the answer to my question, that either not all relevant information was available, or it was and you took the wrong decision. Now, assuming that you didn't, because your public case is that you didn't have all available information, here's the question. What concrete steps has the Cabinet member taken to identify why, on her case, she didn't have the internal memo available to her from February 2022?
Sorry, are you addressing that question to me? Because
I am.
I
What
wasn't
concrete
the
steps
cabinet
have you taken to investigate why that memo was not available to your predecessor?
Yeah, we have done a lot. We have done, well, of course, we'll all be at overreview and scrutiny committee where we'll go through in depth exactly the steps which were taken, what, where and when.
We will.
Unfortunately, that memo was not shared with Councillor Noble at the time, and that was because the credit safe rating for Jeffrey Osborne had recovered at that point.
Not according to the finance
Thank
director
you.
of Jeffrey Osborne.
Question. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is for the Cabinet Member for Finance and Council Reform. Has the Council responded to provisional local government financial settlement which was announced just before Christmas? Thank you.
Councillor Boothroyd.
Thank Councillor Hassan for that question. I can confirm the City Council has made a formal response to the provisional settlement. While we do welcome multi-year settlement and consolidating multiple grants within the formula, the response does set out how the formula has failed in its aim to link funding to deprivation within Westminster, which the Fairer Westminster programme has been successfully tackling. And we don't think it fairly takes into account of the high local costs. We have also made the case for a fair share of resources between the GLA and the boroughs, and for a fix to the business rate retention scheme so that we can use some of the non-domestic rates which we currently collect and share out to local councils across the country. I know this is an area of extreme concern for the council. It is regrettable that the Conservative, one of the most catastrophic failures of the Conservatives over 14 years was announcing the major review of funding in 2017 and then waiting for and kicking the can down the road for 8 years. The effect of that was, of course, that the change when it came was made a lot greater. But we are absolutely standing up for this, and we have certainly been discussing also our response to it, as the leader pointed out. We've also discussed this within the Critical Friends Board.
Supplementary, if I may. Is there an indication that the government might be willing to agree specific changes to help Westminster? Thank you.
Actually, there is. Yeah, they say no. They've not been paying attention. The provisional local government financial settlement does show, and it's in paragraph 3.3.4, if you want to check it, that the government has detected that the funding formula breaks down and fails to adequately support the Corporation of London, because they've got an unexpectedly, exceptionally low residential population, but they have to provide services for a lot of daytime population. Now, that is exactly the same consideration that applies to Westminster, and it's exactly why we are making the best case that we can that the same deal should be applied to us. And obviously, we're also working on the overnight stay levy and trying to get a decent chunk out of that.
Thank you, Councillor Boothroyd. Councillor Scarborough.
Thank you, Thank you. So my question is for the Cabinet Member
for young people and learning. So at a meeting of the Young People and Learning PNS last year, the Cabinet member warned that hard decisions would be necessary. Can the Cabinet member confirm the Council's commitment to frontline services that support vulnerable children and explain the principles that will guide any difficult decisions?
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Councillor Scarborough. Sorry about that. Nothing in there. Yeah, it's normally you. Thank you very much. Yes, definitely. We won't be cutting any frontline services in children's services. As you know, as we you know, children are our future, and we need to safeguard every service that is there for them.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So, given that assurance, can you confirm that there'll be no service reductions or staffing cuts in areas, critical areas such as social work? And if you cannot confirm that, can you confirm that any reductions will be subject to public consultation on your planned cuts and published impact assessment based on the whole life impact on our children?
Yes, the latter.
Thank you.
Councillor Karma.
Good answer.
My question is for Cabinet Member for Climate, Ecology, Culture and Air Quality. Could you please provide an update on how the Council is spending its carbon offset fund?
Thank you, Councillor Carmen. Yes, I can. I'm delighted to say that we have recently closed and announced the projects that received funding from the first round of the Westminster Climate Fund, which is a fund we've set up using carbon offset funding to formalise the process and better support applications to apply to the carbon offset fund. I mean, many of you will remember in one of my early speeches in this chamber, I made a point that it was a big frustration when we weren't in power, the amount of money that the council was sitting on in the carbon offset fund. And very early on in the Future Westminster Commission, we had recommendations about how to change that and to make it better, including moving the decision-making process into the climate emergency team, amongst several other things. And I'm very pleased that after we moved it into the team, we instantly had many more applications coming in, much more money being put out, and actually by last spring, we committed around £8 million into projects across Westminster, including funding to support the residents of the Hallfield estate, who are still dealing with the shameful fallout of the Conservatives' botched, decade-long window upgrade plan. You want to talk about mismanagement of contracts? That's been hanging over residents in our ward for over 15 years. And there are people over there who are involved in that decision-making who take no accountability at all for it. But I'm being asked about the carbon offset fund, so
You've been there for 3 years.
I'll keep it down. I'll keep it down. So, with the Westminster Climate Fund, we have managed to announce in one go, for the first ever time, £5.5 million worth that's been committed to 55 projects all across the city. And I'm really proud of this. And watch this space because round 2 is going to be opening very shortly.
Supplementary, Councillor Coleman.
What a placement deal.
Could you tell us a bit more about some of those projects?
I have a list.
You've got 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
I promise I won't read all 55. We don't have enough time.
Just
we do.
Just
We
give
do
us
have
one.
enough time. Maybe I will.
Councillor, just give us one.
Okay, really, really quickly. Okay, we've got projects of all kinds. We've got some of our largest cultural institutions, such as the ICA and Westminster Abbey, the London Central Mosque,
That's
all the way
3.
to nearer, smaller ones, such as Fitzrovia Community Centre and schools all across Westminster. But the one that I want to highlight is that for the first ever time, we're going to have community energy coming to Westminster. It's been a passion of mine since I became the Cabinet member, and I'm really pleased that through the fund, we have managed to give funding to Repowering London, who are going to be bringing the first ever community energy scheme to Westminster. So as I said, plenty of schemes, read about them on the website, and phase 2 is going to be opening very soon. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Another question to the Cabinet Member for Streets on recycling. Does the Cabinet Member agree that whilst micro-recycling sites are welcomed by residents, that the accumulation of dumped clothing and electrical items near third-party bins across Westminster are a growing problem, and that these bins are a magnet for fly tipping?
Councillor
Yes.
Sullivan. Yes. Supplementary.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Thank you for that answer. Then why has this administration not got a grip with the policy, with a necessary policy to manage the contract properly, to take action to remove the third-party bins, such as the ones provided by Scope, despite repeated complaints from residents, councillors and city inspectors?
Obviously, I disagree. I stood up here not so long ago and told you how on almost every measure that's measured by an independent body called Keep Britain Tidy, you may have heard of them, things have been improving since 2022. The streets are getting cleaner. Incidences of fly tipping have been decreasing. If you would please share with me examples of specific bins where you think there's an issue that we need to do more on, then please do. An email would be nice, you know, like rather than just kind of on your fingers. I don't know. But I'll be happy to look into those specific cases. But as I said, materially, independently, it's been verified that things are getting better. The city is getting cleaner, and I'll be happy to look into specific issues of third-party bins that you're concerned about in your ward if you'd raise them with me on email or in any other form. Thank you.
Thank you. And final question, Councillor Small-Edwards.
Thank you.
Briefly.
Very brief. Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is to the Cabinet Member for Planning and Economic Development. One of the things our residents really don't like is empty shops. I think they're right to have that opinion. What can the council do about empty shops?
Councillor Barraclough.
Thank you, Councillor. And it's normally a great time for me to tell you where you can go shopping at some of our meanwhile activations. Please go to Baker Street, where we have Blur, a wonderful new art gallery. Go to Porchester Place in Hyde Park Ward, where we've got a botanical brand called Sovitel. And on Connaught Street, Yugi, selling fragrances. And on Lisson Grove, the old Labour Exchange, the Job Centre, is now a hub for small businesses with a wonderful coffee shop in the basement serving Ethiopian coffee they make in hot sand in front of you. It's fantastic. I will answer one more question, though, which I know you were just about to ask me, but I've only got 16 seconds, which is that we are going to be announcing this council will take advantage of new powers from the government to impose high street rental auctions on long-term vacant retail premises. We've got some standout landlords who don't look after their property and leave it vacant as a blight on our high streets. We're going to be able to take control of those and force an auction of that lease. We're deciding this at Cabinet on Monday. The first 2 letters will go out to premises in North Paddington next week, Paddington Bayswater next. If anybody here has any long-term vacant retail premises blighting their high streets, please let us know and we'll see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barraclough. That is the end of time allowed for questions. Agenda item 9, councillor issue. I call Councillor Jason Williams to speak on his chosen topic of the quiet power of standards in public life and the place of councillors within their communities.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to take a moment this evening to reflect on the importance of standards in public life and to pay tribute to colleagues who have gone before us and showing through their actions what public service at its best truly looks like. In a time when trust in politics can feel fragile, it's even more important to remember the examples of those who carried out their duties with integrity, humility, and a genuine commitment to the people they serve. Andrew Havery served as a councillor of a Churchill ward from 2002 to 2014, and he embodied that sense of duty. Andrew was a dedicated public servant who worked tirelessly for residents, often quietly and without fanfare. I remember that in 2014, after losing his seat, he went back that very afternoon to visit a resident he'd been helping with casework and completed that casework with them. It says a great deal about his character that even in defeat, when many would understandably step back, he felt his responsibility to finish the job. He once joked that someone had asked him, "Are you the mayor of Churchill?" Though that wasn't a role he held, he certainly carried out the responsibilities he had with the seriousness, commitment and pride you would expect from someone in that position. I also want to pay tribute to Madge Cavella, who served as councillor for Churchill Ward from 1982 to 1990. Madge is still remembered with real affection in Churchill Gardens for her hard work that she did over many years. She wasn't just a councillor, she was and is part of her community. She knew people, she listened, she cared, and she showed up. Her commitment was genuine and deeply felt, and that's why her legacy endures. Madge was a mentor to me and a very good friend, and she put residents first always, and she embodied the very best of what a councillor should be. We live in a time where faith in politics is low, where division is sown and difference is accentuated. Public office is often derided in the media, and it can be very easy to forget the hours the thousands of hours councillors give, often unseen, to help people navigate housing issues, social care, planning concerns, or simply find their way through the complexities of local government. But despite the criticism, public office remains a vital part of our civic life. It's the foundation of local democracy, and it depends on people who are willing to serve with honesty, compassion, and a sense of responsibility. The examples set by colleagues like Andrew and Madge remind us of the standards we should uphold and responsibilities that we carry. They remind us that this role is not about titles or status, but about service. Service to residents, service to our communities, and service to the values that underpin public life. Their legacy challenges all of us to rise to that standard, to act with integrity, and to remember why we're here, to make a difference for the people that we represent. Selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership are not abstract concepts, but the foundation of trust between elected representatives and the people that we serve. These principles guide how we make decisions, how we treat residents, and how we conduct ourselves when no one is watching. Lord Mayor, when councillors live by these values, as Andrew and Madge did, we strengthen not only our communities, but the very fabric of local democracy.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I call Councillor Sia Albert to reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Williams for raising this issue. The phrase, the quiet power of standards in public life, is exactly right, because the most important standards we uphold as councillors are really written down, really photographed, and very rarely rewarded. They're lived out week in and week out in our wards, in our residents' homes, in community hubs, and often late at night when no one is watching. Councillor Williams spoke movingly about his predecessors in Pimlico, Andrew Havery and Madge Kavala in Churchill Gardens, who lived a life of public service rooted in trust, humility, and duty. Those stories matter because they remind us that standards in public life are not about party labels. They are about how we treat people, how seriously we take the responsibility entrusted to us, and whether residents feel the impact of our work when we are gone. Pimlico itself is a powerful example of that tradition in action. Through initiatives like the Pimlico programme, we saw what happens when councillors work closely with residents, community groups and services, quietly, persistently, and with a great understanding of place. The headlines were not the motivating factor. Instead, the long-term commitment, trust, and making change sustainable was the priority. That brings me to the collaborative work in Train the councillors are doing in Pimlico, supporting and guiding VCS organisations to get access to buildings that are no longer used and bring them back for community benefit. The Future Academies building as a vibrant community space and the Pimlico Library in Ramping Street. That work has been strengthened by the leadership coming from that ward. Councillor Williams, who's Chair of Planning and the Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Bagan, Cabinet Member of Housing Services, and Councillor Eagleton, Chair of Pension Fund Committee and Deputy Cabinet Member for Housing, represent a concentration of experience and responsibility that has benefited not just Pimlico, but the whole council. Leadership informed by ward work and carried into strategic roles is exactly how standards in public life are upheld. I am clear these traditions are shared cross-party, majority and opposition alike. There are councillors who work hard for their communities, councillors who give their time, their energy, and often their personal comfort because they believe Westminster can be fairer. I know of councillors juggling their employment roles alongside their councillor roles. Councillors answering casework on trains, on buses, at weekends, after putting children to bed. Councillors sacrificing family time and rest because the need of residents do not fit neatly into office hours. That is particularly true for many of us on the Labour side, where many councillors must work alongside their council role to sustain their lives. Whatever our backgrounds, the common truth is this: Westminster councillors don't do this role for the money. And that brings me to allowances, because standards in public life also depend on transparency with the public. Westminster has historically paid one of the lowest basic council allowances in London. Even today, after a modest uplift, the basic allowance stands at £10,581 per annum. That remains well below London-wide recommendations and significantly below neighbouring councils. Conservative-run Kensington and Chelsea Council's basic allowance, for example, is roughly double Westminster's. Yet, in 2023, headlines by the Conservative Party suggested councillors here were almost doubling their pay. Those stories focused on percentages, not reality. They failed to explain that increases applied to a small number of senior roles, or that the starting point for those roles was exceptionally low, risking a misleading impression about our motivations. The important changes made were about fairness, sustainability, and transparency, recognising the responsibility of running complex and a busy city while still keeping Westminster on the lower end of allowances across London. They were about ensuring public service remains accessible to people who are not independently wealthy. Because if we want councillors who reflect the communities we serve, working people, renters, parents, carers, people from all backgrounds, then public service cannot be priced out of reach. And that too is a matter of standards. Standards mean acting with integrity even when it goes unnoticed. They mean giving respect where it's due, and in some circumstances, learning from those who came before us. They mean putting residents first, not only when it's visible, but especially when it's not. Westminster is better because of councillors past and present who understand that public office is a privilege, not a prize. Who know that trust is slowly built through consistency, empathy, and hard work, and who believe that politics is not an end in itself, but a vehicle to make a tangible and meaningful difference in people's lives. And to residents watching this meeting, Labour-run Westminster's commitment is not to headlines, but to service and to upholding the standards you rightly expect from those you elect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. That concludes this item. We now move on to the remaining agenda items, party business and reports for full council. The topics selected for debate and the names of those down to speak were tabled on the order paper sent to all earlier this week. Each speaker has up to 5 minutes. Agenda item 10, party business. The majority group has selected the topic, A Fairer Westminster, How the New City Plan is Delivering for Our Communities. For debate, as their business this evening, this is as set out in the order paper. So, I now call Councillor Jeff Barraclough to open the debate.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank everybody involved in this review, notably the planning policy team at Westminster, the Westminster Property Association and others in the real estate sector, neighbourhood forums, resident groups and the many individuals who contributed their time and expertise through the consultation process. Lord Mayor, a successful modern city needs development. We cannot stand still. The pressures we face, population change, the housing crisis, new working patterns, higher temperatures and the growing risk of flooding, all require our buildings to work harder and work better. We need growth because a city that refuses to change cannot protect its communities. But we need growth to be sustainable, good for jobs, good for homes, and good for the environment. And this review is about delivering exactly that kind of good growth. First, we're supporting strategic development where it's most needed. Westbourne Park Bus Garage, Royal Oak and Grosvenor Sidings, all large brownfield sites where this council is encouraging mixed-use development, including the delivery of hundreds of new homes. And we're supporting the campaign for a new hospital at St Mary's with specific planning policies that will make it quicker and cheaper for Imperial to bring forward its plans. Lord Mayor, tonight's vote removes uncertainty and gives clarity that Westminster supports development at those sites. There is, of course, no guarantee that construction will start. That rests with the landowners. But if we want homes, jobs and hospitals, these policies move the odds firmly in our favour. Now, turning to affordable housing, the review makes two important changes. Firstly, we are closing a loophole. Planning committee members will be familiar with developers asking for 9 units totalling 990 square metres. And that's because small sites, defined as less than 1,000 square metres or 10 units, have been exempt from providing any affordable housing at all. In Westminster, where 40% of new homes come from small sites, this loophole has made a real impact, and that's why we are ending it tonight. Lord Mayor, when we say affordable, we mean affordable housing. From this evening, 70% of affordable homes delivered under the city plan will be at low social rents with secure tenancies. That means more local families will be able to put down roots in homes they can afford to rent for the long term. And finally, Lord Mayor, I want to turn to retrofit first, arguably the most consequential environmental planning policy ever adopted by a local authority in the UK. If we look out of the windows of City Hall, we see thousands of commercial buildings burning gas from the mains and leaking heat through windows and facades. At the same time, demand for high-quality net zero office space has rarely been higher. Top-quality tenants demand the low-carbon buildings. So, to save the planet and to attract the best international companies to locate in London, we need to upgrade our existing stock, do it quickly and with the smallest possible environmental footprint. Retrofit First does exactly that. It helps developers deliver better commercial floor space faster, with less risk and less carbon impact. And I'm pleased to say we reached genuine consensus with the industry on this approach. And in return, the Council's been clear we are now more likely to support the upwards extensions of commercial buildings where they unlock retrofit of the whole building. But to be clear, our policy is retrofit first, not retrofit only. We will continue to allow redevelopment where retrofit is not viable. For example, where buildings have serious structural limitations, where there are specialist uses, such as hospitals or research facilities, or where there are significant public benefits, such as a large number of new jobs or affordable homes. And where we do support redevelopment, replacement buildings must meet strict low-carbon standards. Applicants have been working within our new retrofit framework for over a year, and the results are striking. We're seeing more refurbishments, fewer demolitions, and a 24% reduction in construction-related emissions per square metre of new floor space. Lord Mayor, this review unlocks major developments on brownfield sites, bringing jobs and homes to the city. The review closes loopholes to deliver more and more genuinely affordable housing. And this review gets more commercial buildings refurbished more quickly and with less damage to the environment. That is what good growth looks like, and that is what the City Plan Review delivers.
Thank you, Councillor Clara Clark. Councillor Elliot Ormsby.
Thank you very much. So, Westminster is one of the most expensive places in the world to live, and low levels of affordable housing delivery in recent years has done little to address this. Can you believe that under the previous administration, only 52 affordable homes were built in the entire city in 2020 to 2021? And a measly 28 were built the following year. Moreover, the Tories brought the same level of ambition to the council's own housing. For example, as I've said already tonight, on the whole of the Ebury Bridge scheme, the previous administration had planned just 41 new social homes. And we were so appalled by the number of homes for social rent put forward by the previous administration. On taking control of the council, Councillor Noble undertook an immediate review of all existing schemes to increase the number of units for social rent by 357 overnight. And it isn't just recent policy catastrophes. Decades of Conservative housing policy has left our communities paying the price. The continued expansion of right to buy without like-for-like replacement has stripped councils of genuinely affordable homes and pushed more families into insecurity, overcrowding and expensive private renting. And that goes without mention of the Homes for Votes scandal, where our local Tories sold off council homes to try and keep themselves in office. The housing crisis we face today is not inevitable. It's a direct result of the political choices that have prioritised short-term ideology and political wins over long-term stability for working people. For too long, that reality has meant that the people who keep Westminster running, our carers, cleaners, teachers, nurses, hospitality workers and young families, have been increasingly priced out of the very communities that they serve. That is why the changes we've introduced through the new city plan matter, because they respond directly to what the evidence tells us, that Westminster faces an acute and growing shortage of genuinely affordable homes, especially social housing. Our strategic housing market assessment shows that more than 6,000 households are in unmet housing need, and that number is rising. The previous approach, however, placed too much emphasis on intermediate housing. Prioritising intermediate housing failed to meet the scale or depth of need in this city. For many residents, even so-called affordable intermediate homes remained out of reach. To be clear, intermediate housing does have a place in Westminster, but it must be properly targeted and proportionate.
In Westminster, intermediate housing is often only available to households earning £60,000 or more, and sometimes considerably higher, and that does nothing for the thousands of families earning at or below the average income. More than that, it doesn't make financial or economic sense. Every family unable to access social housing is more likely to remain trapped in temporary accommodation that is often unsuitable, destabilising and extremely expensive for the council to fund. We're spending millions of pounds each year housing families in temporary accommodation, sometimes for years at a time, when a secure social rented home would provide stability and far better value for money for the taxpayer. A child growing up in a hotel room will never benefit from a housing system weighted towards intermediate homes their parents can never afford. And Westminster Council does not benefit either from the cost, churn and disruption that follows from housing so many families in temporary accommodation. So that's why we've changed course. Under our revised city plan, 70% of the new affordable homes will be for social rent, with 30% intermediate. This is a decisive and necessary shift. It means new development in Westminster, like on our own developments, will prioritise those most in need. And we will also ensure that all new housing developments contribute fairly. For the first time, small-scale residential developments, which deliver nearly a third of new homes in Westminster, will be required to contribute to affordable housing. The proposed changes will also deliver more housing by unlocking underused brownfield land at Westbourne Park Bus Garage, Royal Oak and Groves and Sidings. I'm pleased we're putting forward these revisions, as continuing with policies that do not meet need, cost the council more in the long run and leave families stuck in temporary accommodation is short-sighted. Moreover, all of these changes have been assessed independently by BNP Paribas, who have confirmed these changes will not make schemes unviable. This is what responsible policy making looks like. It means responding where the evidence shows that past approaches have not worked. It means prioritising solutions that reduce homelessness and stabilise our communities. And it means that recognising that social housing is central to the long-term health of our city. Westminster Tories, quite frankly, be trusted with the housing in our city. The Home for Vote scandal proved that the local Tories think that housing is nothing more than an electoral weapon at their own disposal. And their continued disregard of genuinely affordable homes shows that that mindset has never really changed. Our revised city plan will not solve the housing crisis overnight, but it puts Westminster on a different path, one that is fairer, more inclusive and more honest about the scale of the challenge we face. And that is something this Labour administration can rightly be proud of.
Thank you. Councillor Jim Glenn.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. After that wildly partisan and frankly inaccurate remembering of history, which doesn't acknowledge that all the current social housing schemes in Westminster were started under the previous administration, I would like to take Councillor Williams' lead on a softer, more bipartisan approach and give credit where credit's due. We're delighted that you've kept 44 of the 45 existing policies of the excellent city plan prepared under the previous Conservative administration, adding 5 new policies and substantially altering 1. As we've heard, 4 of the new policies are detailing site allocations in the response to the call from the GLA. My colleague will talk about these more later. The other new policy is retrofit first. Bipartisan support across this council has recognised the climate emergency and agreed ambitious net zero targets, as any responsible local authority should. We agree that the principle of repurposing existing buildings where possible, preserving and enhancing their structure, is a good one. But there's an important question of degree, allowing developers the opportunity to build in Westminster to create new, environmentally sustainable buildings that are fit for the future. This policy must not become retrofit only, which I do fear that it's in danger of, but allow and encourage sensible and responsible regeneration to encourage businesses to thrive in Westminster, along with the new housing that we all agree is so desperately needed. The increase in bureaucracy associated with major developments over the last few years and the associated increase in cost has meant that we've seen a marked decline in major developments being brought forward, even when compared to our own immediate central London neighbours. When major development is seen as too difficult here, with our flagship policies, and merely relocates to a more business-friendly borough, this does not provide environmental benefits for anyone, merely a loss of investment in Westminster. Unfortunately, due to the abolition of the Planning and City Development Committee, a move that reduces democratic oversight of the planning process, Councillors no longer get regular updates on the number of planning applications and appeals brought forward as a matter of routine. I would ask the Cabinet Member to ensure that this information is regularly available for all. With the shocking proposals from the Labour government to remove local oversight from almost all planning decisions completely, this becomes ever more important. Openness and transparency in decision-making is vital in maintaining public confidence in the system. This is one area where yet another U-turn from the Labour government on an ill-thought-out and unpopular proposal would be very welcome indeed. The other major change in this partial review concerns the new affordable housing policy. This is the area which we have the greatest issue with. Westminster should be a city where everyone can aspire to live, from teachers and policemen to nurses and office workers. By massively reducing the intermediate housing requirements for these new developments, you are reducing the opportunity for those who will never qualify for social housing, but who cannot afford the market price in Westminster. It should not be a city for just the very rich or the very poor. Westminster is, as you say, the second most expensive local authority in the country in which to rent or purchase a home, and yet less than 1.5% of Westminster's housing stock is intermediate affordable, where nearly 30% of the housing stock currently is social rented, with 57% of that being housing association and 43% local authority. There is actually a great deal of social housing across Westminster, but very little affordable. This review makes this disparity worse, which surely is not fair to all residents and workers in Westminster. We would prefer Westminster to be truly a city for all. Even the Mayor of London has finally recognised that placing unreasonable burdens on development means that nothing gets built at all. In October last year, when the Minister, Steve Reed, announced new measures to ramp up house building in London, Mayor Khan was quoted saying that there was now a perfect storm facing house building in London due to rising costs. I find myself in the odd position of agreeing with Sadiq Khan. In response to this challenge, the government has proposed a package of measures, including a fast track, streamlining the process for house building, relaxing the requirement for affordable housing on private land to just 20%, and announced time-limited relief from CIL, Community Infrastructure Leisure, for house builders. Likewise, we should be encouraging development and building right here in Westminster, not putting more bureaucratic roadblocks in the way. This partial plan review makes it just a little bit harder to build in Westminster, which I suppose is one achievement you've got to show for 4 years in power, but one we shall not be supporting. Thank you.
Councillor Iman Less.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This city plan asks us a simple but important question. Do we want to plan passively for change, or do we want to lead it? Nowhere is that choice clearer than in our policy on St Mary's Hospital. And the city plan is explicit. St Mary's is a large, complex and strategically vital site. It is London's busiest trauma centre, a world-renowned teaching and research hospital, and the major acute hospital serving all of North West London, a population of around 2.4 million people. It operates a 24/7 A&E department, and it does so in buildings that the plan itself acknowledges are no longer fit for purpose. And most importantly, it's where I was born. But those facts matter, because this is not an abstract planning exercise. This is about whether our city is prepared to meet real health needs, now and in the future. And we're being honest about that challenge. It states clearly that approximately 136,000 square metres of new hospital floor space will be required to meet projected demand. It recognises that this must be delivered while maintaining existing levels of healthcare provision throughout construction, because disruption is not an option when lives depend on continuity of care. And that is a serious and responsible position, and it is one that puts public health at the centre of planning. The policy also understands that health outcomes are shaped long before anyone enters a ward. The plan talks about legibility, access, permeability, public realm and movement, because if people cannot get to care easily, calmly and safely, then the system is already failing them. For example, as someone who lives with anxiety, I know how deeply the built environment affects your ability to cope. Confusing layouts, poor access, and hostile public spaces only amplifies stress. And that's not just for patients, but it's for families, carers, and staff. St Mary's is also the only hospital in the UK with A&E on the first floor. Now that is flawed. This policy's emphasis on clear routes, better pedestrian access, and improved navigation is not cosmetic. It's a public health intervention, and that is what intentional planning looks like. The city plan also takes a clear stance on intensification. It recognises the need to consolidate hospital uses on a smaller footprint while being explicit that height, scale, and massing must respond to heritage, townscape value, and the character of surrounding areas. But that balance does matter, because good public health planning is not about maximising floor space at any cost, but about delivering the right infrastructure and in the right way. Sustainability runs through this policy for that same reason. So climate resilience, energy efficiency, urban greening, and biodiversity net gain are not only add-ons. They are essential to long-term health outcomes. A hospital that cannot withstand climate impacts or that worsens air quality and heat stress is not fit for the future. And the city plan understands that environmental health and human health are inseparable. That is why this matters. And this administration has been clear that good quality infrastructure around healthcare is a key pillar of our work. We are not content to manage decline, nor to rely on outdated estates while demand rises. We are choosing to plan deliberately, responsibly, and with long-term outcomes in mind. This policy reflects that choice. It aligns healthcare delivery with placemaking. It links public realm improvements to well-being. And it ensures that redevelopment contributes positively, not just to a hospital site, but to the wider Paddington Opportunity Area and beyond. Adopting this city plan is a statement. It says that Westminster will not leave public health to chance, nor treat social infrastructure as secondary to growth. It says that we understand the scale of our responsibility and are prepared to meet it. And that is something that we should all be proud of. A city plan that is intentional, sustainable, and fairer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Less. Councillor Mark Shearer.
Colleagues come in. Whilst I do that, on behalf of our group and as Chief Whip, I want to say, Nafsika, it's great to see you in the Council chamber tonight, looking so well. So, thank you, Lord Mayor. For all the pomp and gusto of Labour's manifesto in 2022 to build new homes, I find it slightly bemusing that we're here 45 months later and debating an amended city plan, a plan which does little to answer questions about their ability to build new homes. But before we tackle the site allocations, I would like to go back to a debate we had in July. Colleagues will remember I upset Councillor Noble in the Council chamber by asking how many new regen pipeline homes have been delivered under the Labour group. I also subsequently emailed the leader. The reply I received didn't answer the question at all. As an opposition councillor, it always rings alarm bells. I was told that 352 homes have been added to the pipeline resulting from tenure changes, courtesy of their close friend in City Hall providing the funding. That's not building new homes in Westminster, it's simply relabelling one home as another. The following bullets claim successes and progress at, wait for it, Harrow Road, 291 Harrow Road, Church Street and Ebridge Bridge, all Conservative started schemes. But I'm afraid, my colleagues, that I'm none the wiser on how many new regen homes have been conceived under this Labour Council. Is the number 0? I haven't had any evidence that it isn't. More bemusing, however, was seeing Councillor Noble accepting various awards for Ebury Bridge Estate without any acknowledgement of the cross-party working and the Conservative work to make the scheme happen. The revised city plan was an opportunity for the Labour group to get serious about house building. Firstly, I can commend Councillor Barraclough and the officers on producing the document. It is a monumental amount of work, and I agree with Councillor Glenn that it's good to see many of the original sentiments remain. But my job here is to ask difficult questions alongside Councillor Glenn. The ones that are constructive, and ones that Westminster's residents want asking. I will focus on the site allocations aspect of the plan, and I have 3 concerns. If I can get the page turned. There we go. My first concern aligns with something everyone in this chamber believes in: transparency and democracy. The original plan had a DPD, Development Plan Document mechanism, set up so that neighbourhoods and communities could formally engage with the process of selecting sites and new homes could be built in a transparent and democratic way. The 4 site allocations have bypassed any real scrutiny or consultation and have been plonked into the plan as regen areas. Is this democratic? Is it fairer? My second point relates to the intermediate and social rent split. This Labour group quickly introduced post-election an increased weighting towards social rented property, which we've just debated. Whether this was ideologically driven or not, it went against all of our previous research. The outcome will make it harder for Labour to build new homes. Looking at it purely commercially, less intermediate housing creates less rent, which makes wafer-thin development appraisals unviable. Decisions have outcomes, and in this case, dropping intermediate ratios makes building new homes more difficult, much more difficult. My last point is along similar lines. The allocations are one thing, but where is the plan to actually build the homes? Where is the detail? Most of these are in third-party ownership. None are build-ready, nor are funded for immediate housing delivery. In fact, some are on the slowest and hardest sites to bring forward: a major hospital, rail infrastructure land, and sites that have flood and heritage issues. Is this vanity planning with policies written for press releases, or is it homes built for families? I close this speech by challenging the Labour group on their house building record. To date, we still haven't had any clarification a single new pipeline regen home has been delivered that wasn't Conservative-led. This revised city plan simply doesn't acknowledge the likely dire house building record of this council. Is it too little too late, and does it smack of desperation late in a council term? Is it naive in its approach? And again, does it contain little detail and pragmatism on how new homes will be brought forward for the citizens of Westminster? It is for these reasons that we will be abstaining from the vote later. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan Hughes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As Councillor Barraclough said, the Retrofit First policy in this partial city plan review is perhaps the single most consequential environmental planning policy delivered to date by any council in this country. And in Westminster, the built environment accounts for around 90% of total CO2 emissions, more than double the percentage in most other council areas. So this policy will play a particularly important role in achieving our ambition to become a net zero city by 2040. But not only is it environmentally sound and ambitious, it also has the broad support of industry, planning professionals and our residents, but sadly not the opposition. And that is a testament to the hard work of the officers across the council over several years to create something truly unique and revolutionary. Because that is exactly what our Retrofit First policy is. And for those who haven't read it properly, it's really important to stress the word first, because this isn't retrofit only. It isn't here to prevent development. It is unashamedly pro-growth and pro-environment. A Labour council making sure the homes and buildings that we need will get built and that they'll be fit for the future. And so with this policy having so many positives, it's going to be such a shame when the opposition do their usual and abstain at tonight's vote. Because at least if they voted against it, we would know that they are against truly affordable housing and sustainable development in our city. But it's become a habit of the minority party to not have a clear position when it comes to votes in this chamber. But I guess it's that inability to have clear positions that makes it so easy for so many of the Conservatives across the country to jump ship to the other party now represented in Westminster. But at least we know that the Reform Party, or the failed Conservatives Club, is likely to vote against this tonight, because they don't even believe in climate change as an issue, let alone in doing the hard work needed to introduce a planning policy to fight it. But seriously, I will say that it's genuinely really great to see that one of the Reform Party has managed to make it tonight. And I really hope that, unlike the last full council, you also stay for the votes at the end, because remember, they happen right at the end of the meeting. But no matter how the two parties vote tonight, their ability to switch allegiances so easily is not going unnoticed. And voters in Westminster and in this country can see that the two parties are increasingly the same. Vote Conservative, get Reform. Vote Reform, get failed Conservative. Lord Mayor, in our 4 years in power, we have made our positions clear. And it was almost 4 years ago when I made my maiden speech in this chamber. And in that speech, I, like tonight, spoke about the existential risks posed by the climate emergency. And I spoke about the important and unique role that councils must play in combating it. And I said what Labour Westminster would aim to do while in power. And so tonight, and what will be my final speech in this chamber, I am delighted to say we delivered. We reduced council emissions by 27%, while they only managed 7%. We retrofitted 2,000 social housing properties, reducing their bills by hundreds of pounds, installed solar, heat pumps and other measures across almost 100 of our corporate property sites, declared an ecological emergency, increased biodiversity across our city, ran a citizens' climate assembly, launched our Westminster Green Investments, and have embedded climate and environmental justice across everything the council does. We're committed to World Health Organization targets on air quality, developed actions to deal with extreme heat and flooding, and so much more. In 2022, in our Green New Deal manifesto, we set out our blueprint of what we would do to make this a fairer, greener Westminster, and we delivered. And tonight we vote on perhaps the most impactful policy of all of them, our Retrofit First policy. So when Reform the Conservatives don't support this tonight, we won't care. We as Labour will keep going on and continuing with the hard work of delivering on the promises that we made. And I've been so proud to have been part of a Labour administration that has changed this city for the better, fought for the things that matter to our residents, and has played its role in fighting the climate and ecological emergencies, as we will do once again tonight when we vote to approve the City Plan Review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jude. I now call on Councillor Jeff Barraclough to reply to the debate.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, everybody. Look, let me take you back to 2022 and the Labour manifesto that saw the council change control for the first time in its history. Tonight, we're voting on 4 core commitments from that manifesto delivered through this review. Retrofit First policy, reversing the Conservative retreat from social housing and restoring social rent as the backbone of affordability in Westminster, backed up by the housing needs document you'll find on the website, right? We're closing the small sites loophole, which allowed 2 main developments to dodge any contribution at all, identifying 4 major sites with real potential for growth, more jobs, more homes, better infrastructure. We said we would do these things, and tonight we are doing them. That's why the public can trust Labour with this council for another 4 years. But the idea these policies are anti-development simply doesn't survive contact with reality. Lord Mayor, I find it slightly ironic to hear complaints about uncertainty from those who wrote the policy in the first place. The previous city plan already required demolition to be fully justified against whole life carbon. It didn't say what that meant. The result was negotiation by guesswork, slow, expensive, unpredictable. Our policy doesn't invent a new hurdle. It finally explains the one that already existed. And today we replace vagueness with clarity, which is exactly what the development industry has been asking for. And they are responding with high-quality schemes that retain more than half of the existing floor space while delivering modern, flexible offices. I want to give you some good examples. Berkeley Estate Asset Management retrofitting 1 Knightsbridge Green and 33 Cavendish Square. Lazari's plans to reimagine Phoenix on Bond Street, jacking up the first floor to give you double-height retail. And Beltane at Marylebone House, the former Arcadia headquarters, keeping 85% of the structure and delivering quality office space, attracting a Swiss bank to move to Marylebone from Canary Wharf. That's the kind of development we'd like to see in the buildings that Westminster needs. But, as my colleague said, it's retrofit first, not retrofit only. There is no ban on demolition. Now, the other familiar argument we've heard tonight is that private development has slowed because we are being too demanding on affordable housing. That argument also doesn't stack up. The affordable housing requirement has been unchanged for a decade. What has changed are the global shocks, Brexit, the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, Liz Truss's catastrophic budget that Councillor Mendoza was so keen on, soaring interest rates, rising construction costs, and the Conservative government's disastrous introduction of the Building Safety Regulator. None of that has anything to do with affordable housing. Our policies have been independently tested by the property experts at BNP Paribas, and their conclusion is clear: increasing the proportion of social rent and asking small sites to contribute will not reduce delivery. And the planning inspector at the inquiry agreed with us. Look, our proposals are not a radical shift. For every 100 homes built, there will be 10 more at social rent and 10 fewer intermediate, a modest recalibration and firmly within viability. And I have to say, look, if the Conservatives liked intermediate flats so much, why didn't they build more when they had the chance? Look at the old War Office at Whitehall, a great place for key worker flats. It could have had 98, it doesn't have any. Look at Whiteley's, another great place for key worker flats just opposite St Mary's. Could have had 280 affordable homes. You let it off with 14. On it goes. Look, there's two other issues with intermediate housing. Firstly, there's not that much demand for it. If you want one, they're readily available, unlike council homes. And secondly, developers are finding it almost impossible to get registered providers to buy intermediate units at all, right? At Whiteley's and at St John's Wood Barracks, the intermediate flats are built and they are empty. They are empty because no housing association will buy them because the service charges are too high. Why would we double down on a model of housing which is so unattractive and leaves homes empty? Lord Mayor, the City Plan Review is a credible, deliverable, and it is rooted in reality. It honours our manifesto, responds to the climate emergency, and puts affordability where it belongs, at the heart of our city. I commend this to the Council.
Thank you, everyone, for all your contributions. That concludes the debate on the item chosen by the majority group. We now move to the debate from the opposition group. They have selected the topic, People Don't Feel Safe in Westminster. This is as set out in the order paper. I now call Councillor Caroline Sargent to open the debate.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Crime and antisocial behaviour are getting worse across Westminster, and people don't feel safe. Racist abuse and hate crimes are rising and affect all our communities in different ways. Residents and businesses across the city continue to tell us the same thing. Crime feels more visible, antisocial behaviour feels more tolerated, and enforcement feels weaker. Local people have already lost confidence in Labour Mayor Sadiq Khan, but also in this Labour administration's ability or interest to do anything about it. Because we all hear the skyrocketing figures on mobile phone theft, shoplifting up 36% since 22, both of which can actually be enabled by not tackling e-bike abuse, another area where they've been failing, and the threats and robberies involving knives. No wonder people don't feel safe. We were told a few months ago the council would invest nearly £3 million in 9 extra police officers to tackle crime in ASB. Well, here we are at the end of Jan, and residents want to know, where are they? How many are on the beach yet? Because I've heard they might not all be deployed until much later. And that does nothing to reassure communities dealing with problems today, particularly in the outer and northern wards, such as Little Venice, Abbey Road and Regent's Park, where visible policing remains far too limited. I talk to people across Westminster, from Lancaster Gate to Pimlico, and they tell me about problems, say, with short-term lets. You know, people dump rubbish on the wrong days, it gets torn apart by foxes or people and makes a mess on the street. Or the detritus we see accumulating around some of the tent encampments. Did you report it, I ask? Yes, they say, but the council don't really do anything because it's still happening, so I don't think they care. My message to the people of Westminster is, Conservatives care, Conservatives will do something about it if we are elected in May. So given this, what's been particularly disappointing has been the lack of leadership and urgency from this administration in calling for, or a reluctance to use, the full box of tools already available and implement immediate justice measures. It might not seem nice to take enforcement action, but Westminster residents expect to see it. They want their council pushing harder and working with the police on PSPOs, community protection notices, community behaviour orders, and other enforcement powers. Lawful, tested tools designed precisely to deal with persistent offenders and hotspots of ASB in a local authority context. Because Conservative councillors have consistently been calling for these measures. Lo and behold, after nearly 4 years and a few weeks before the local elections, we hear they're considering expanding their use. But it's not just about issuing them, but enforcing them, because unenforced laws or regulations are mere notions, they're just words. Or are they worried about offending some of the special interest groups that have been propping up their failing administration? Another part of the solution was meant to be CCTV, and I think 200 or so have been installed to date, but are they being used by the city teams? Well, I raised this issue at last year's budget full council with Cabinet member, Councillor Less, and she did acknowledge the low usage and assured us that requests would increase as it was early days, and it was a fair point. But it's now a year on, and the latest figures in recent reports, which Conservative members do read, still suggest only around 30 requests to view footage per month across Westminster. If requests from city teams, if those figures are inaccurate, let's be transparent and correct them. But if they're even, well, those aren't the reports that you've sent out to us, if they're even close to accurate, the project's not offering value for money or tackling the problems. Westminster After Dark proposes more CCTV cameras to cut crime, but the existing CCTV isn't leading to enough prosecutions, and to the dismay of some industry associations, the cameras, I hear, will be operating without facial recognition software, which was successfully introduced in Croydon, so it's another missed opportunity for Westminster. Finally, there are also legitimate questions about some of the soup kitchens working with street populations. As the major rough sleeping charities also agree, these can unwittingly be part of the problem if they don't operate responsibly by taking steps to get people off the streets and into care pathways. This can make people victims, further enabling addiction, and attract drug dealers with all the ASB baggage that accompanies it. Because if we don't all take enforcement seriously now, we can see a path where we'll end up like some cities in the world that are effectively lawless because municipal authorities were too ideological to act. Lord Mayor, Westminster deserves a council with a cabinet member for enforcement that's serious about law and order and serious about standing up for residents. A Conservative council will do just this to help make Westminster safe again.
Thank you. Councillor Selina Short.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. The plain fact is that criminality is the biggest problem in my ward, whether it's on the streets or in social housing. This is the thing that people speak to Councillor Harvey Hayes and myself about the most. There's been some effort still with the situation, with constant pressure for us, and it's taken over 2 years. We have meetings and things like that. And as Councillor Harvey says, we had a by-election and now we've got some action. However, in our ward, there is still open and blatant daily drug dealing. As I've said before, this criminality is not helping the vulnerable people that we and our charity partners are working with, and it is terrible for law-abiding residents. I worry that some people do not see the harm that this drug dealing does. We can see from the daily pictures provided by residents, people huddling to take drugs on cold, damp streets. There are groups who come out at around 10 a.m. to get their fix, looking so ill. We know these people have a high likelihood of dying young, if not from the drugs themselves, then from the lack of care they take of themselves because of their addictions. There is one spot on Ashley Place which is within the view of Westminster cameras, yet we councillors are told by an old couple that the dealing happens all day. The top of Vauxhall Bridge Road, a resident reported this for 6 months with pictures. The resident has moved and the dealing on this spot continues. It was even happening when we were walking around with the police and our local MP and officers and stuff. The people who are selling these drugs are not charities and they do not care about their clients. The majority party quotes design outs in our wards, and I'm going to say that every one of these pretty much was initiated by us local councillors working with landlords. The one that we haven't been working on, the telephone exchange, which we're still waiting for. It is good we have more police, but I also understand that another Westminster police team has been disbanded. What are the actual figures? There seems to be smoke and mirrors here. We also have a great new city inspector. Even with this increase in police, the problems continue. Some change has been provided by private security, paid for by our residents and by our ward budget. The issues on Ashley Gardens, for example, have stopped with their private security and some design out. Most of the issues. I would honestly prefer it to be the Met providing security, but despite constant reporting, the police and the council were not succeeding, and residents in their desperation have hired private security. We are now using ward money to support various security teams, including on the Peabody estate. Councillor Harvey Hayes and I decided that this money most benefits our residents by helping or working to help keep them safe. Residents continue to say they are afraid to leave home after dark. The next extremely frustrating thing is that we do not seem to be able to get the council and other partners to work together with all the security teams. Private security is a resource which should be helping the police enforce law and order. Instead, some are facing inwards like a court of Versailles or something, trying to score points against other security teams. Peabody's response to security, private security, was a positive example, just grateful for any help they can get to try to keep their residents safe. Another terrible thing is when the council is told about ASB and housing, often fed by substance misuse. It takes months, if not years, for any action to be taken. Again, drastic for neighbours, but also terrible for the perpetrator. They're probably not well. The Mayor of London seems to prefer spending money on renaming tube lines or traffic schemes rather than what is fundamental for our city, law and order. We need the council to take enforcement of all crime very seriously, and we need to firmly encourage our partners to do so too.
Councillor James Small-Edwards.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Keeping our residents safe is our first duty as elected representatives, and it is one this Labour administration could not take more seriously. It's because we understand that in the absence of safety, it's impossible to build and sustain the things in life that we need. A young woman cannot enjoy an evening out if they fear they're going to be harassed on the way home. A business cannot thrive if they fear the goods that they're selling will be stolen with impunity. A tourist cannot explore our wonderful city if they fear the phone that they're using to navigate it is going to be snatched out of their hand. So for these reasons and more, crime and safety is our first responsibility. And nowhere is that responsibility more acute than when it comes to the crime of murder. The act of murder, the taking of another's life, is a crime so final, so inhumane, and so devastating for the families of victims. That is why the Mayor of London was absolutely right to set up England's first ever Violence Reduction Unit in 2019. The Violence Reduction Unit takes a public health approach to tackling violence in our city, looking at the underlying causes of violence, such as poverty, inequality, and a lack of opportunity. It also brings law enforcement together with communities, councils, schools, the NHS, and charities to coordinate efforts to reduce violence. And this approach, I'm glad, is starting to bear fruit. Last year, London recorded the lowest number of murders in over a decade and had the lowest murder rate since records began. The murder rate in London is lower than in Toronto, Berlin, New York, Milan, and Paris. Good. Progress has been particularly strong when it comes to serious violence among young people. Teenage homicide has fallen to its joint lowest level in almost 3 decades. And among under 25s, London recorded the lowest number of homicides this century. And it's not just police data that shows this fall. It's also reflected in data from the health service. The number of people being hospitalised due to injury from a sharp object has fallen 29% in London in the last 5 years. One murder is, however, one too many, and more must continue to be done on this most grievous crime. But despite these positive developments, crime is still too high in the city. One example of this is phone theft, something which has affected a lot of our residents. A lot? That's why we fought for the extra 80 police in the West End and St James. areas particularly affected by phone theft, and why in October it was great to see the Met dismantle an international smuggling gang responsible for 40,000 phone thefts in our city. We must continue to bear down on the crimes that affect our residents. However, we also must not give in to the doomsters, the gloomsters, and the declinists. We must not listen to the snake-oil salesmen and women, most of whom not actually living in our city, who tell us the place we are so proud to call home is an apocalyptic hellhole. I was recently speaking to a resident on the doorstep in my ward of Bayswater. She told me that she'd been visiting family and friends outside of London over Christmas and New Year, and was surprised to hear someone she came across ask, "Do you feel safe in London?" She told them that she did feel safe. But they responded by telling her, "Oh, but don't you think it's changed so much?" She said she knew exactly what they meant, and she didn't like what was going unsaid. The fact of the matter is that there are politicians on both sides of the pond who are peddling a false narrative to suit their own agendas, an agenda that is not about improving the lives of people in our city. It is fueled by misinformation and disinformation on social media. And why do the people promulgating these false narratives hate Westminster, hate London so much? It's because they hate our success. They hate that we are so different in so many ways and yet so united. They hate that we are a multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multi-faith city that leads the world in art, food, culture, tech, sport. They hate the fact that Western Europe's biggest city keeps electing a Muslim mayor of Pakistani descent. Our integration is so deep that even our far right fuel up for a protest on an onion bargee. Lots has been successfully done to tackle crime, and I'm well aware there's a lot more still to do. But the people who are going to drive down crime in our city are not the politicians who hate it, it's the ones who love it. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Before Councillor Alan Mendoza.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Gosh, it's almost a miracle to be able to speak in this council. So, such is a war of democracy that I'm afraid both the main parties have been fighting, as we'll see later in the committee representations. Now, that was an interesting speech by Councillor Small-Edwards, stirring stuff. But he speaks of disinformation as if somehow there is no crime epidemic in London, or Westminster for that matter. He's pretending that it's all fine, it's wonderful, we're united, it's not the phone fests are not there, the shoplifting's not there, the crisis is not there. All Londoners know what's really going on in this city. We all know that crime is at far too high a level, and we know that it is the Labour Party, whose dead hand has controlled London for so long, and this council for a short but too long time, that actually is responsible for not dealing with it. I mean, look, we're not an island here in Westminster, but let's look at some of the stats, because this disproves your disinformation claim. Shoplifting offences in London, according to the Met Police, 2022, 38,160, 2025, 99,363. We've got, of course, over 117,000 mobile phones stolen in 2024, compared to 91,000 in 2019. Shoplifting is costing London's retailers £16.7 million a month, and a lot of those are, of course, here in Westminster. That's not disinformation, that's real stats. That's a problem in this city right now. An epidemic of lower-level crime, delighted murderers coming down. You're quite right to highlight the seriousness of that. But on lower-level crime that actually affects Londoners much more on a daily basis, everyone's feeling much more unsafe. And in Westminster, we can see that we're doing particularly badly. We know that the overall crime rate here is the highest in London, 171 crimes per 1,000 people. Kensington and Chelsea's next on 129. Okay? The whole London rate is 85, so we're well above it, as you well know. Now, there are certain circumstances for that, but that doesn't mean that we can escape the responsibility for that disaster here in this city. And, you know, essentially, we are the most dangerous borough in London. That is not something any of us can be proud of, particularly the Mayor of London and the administration. Again, look at some of the stats. Theft from the person, 53 per 1,000 people in Westminster. That's 6.5 times the general London rate. Forget about the rest of the country. That's the general London rate. Shoplifting, 15 per 1,000 people in Westminster. That's twice the London rate. And those are the two best ones. You've got robbery, other things. Every incident you have, Westminster tops the charts. This is not something to be proud of. It is not disinformation. It is real. And we've already heard some of the solutions that can be undertaken by this council in terms of taking more seriously when reports coming, dealing with partners, making the police do their work more. A lot of it's in our control. We had a case in Abbey Road Ward, an astonishing one, where we had antisocial behaviour problems in one place. Councillors, for months, kept on questioning what's going on with the CCTV. CCTV was placed there, and it luckily turned out this week the CCTV had been pointing in the wrong direction. Okay, that's a simple thing that is very much in the council's control to actually affect and make changes on. And we really have to be serious about looking at how efficient and effective our own services are here in Westminster when it comes to providing the care that people in this city need. That's not going to be an isolated case. There are going to be similar others in that process. So rather than, kind of banding around the stats, let's look at what the solutions could be. And I'm afraid I've got news for my former colleagues. It's not going to be a Conservative mayor that's going to change this city. It's going to be a reform, a Muslim mayor, another Muslim mayor, but a Muslim mayor. I'll tell you where she is tonight. She has been dealing with the grooming gang crisis.
Children, not party time just yet.
The grooming gang
Calm
crisis,
down.
where she has been, of course, instrumental nationally with exposing that terrible crime, looking at that today, looking at the crime in the city. One little anecdote for you all. Anecdotal, it's not evidential, it's anecdotal. My wife was in a bank not far from here earlier this week. Suddenly there were screams going on outside. She popped outside, a woman had her bag stolen. Suddenly a group of other people came round, and before we know it, there was a group conversation about what was happening with street crime in that particular part. One stall holder from the stall said he'd been chasing criminals several times this week at risk to his own business by doing that. Another man came forward and said he had stopped that crime as well. But all of them, unbidden, and my wife can recount this herself, unbidden said the solution is going to be Layla Cunningham, who is going to get tough on crime in London. You can laugh now, but I guarantee you'll all be laughing on the other side of your faces in 2028, when London will become safer overnight with a reform mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great maiden speech, Councillor Mendoza. Councillor Matt Noble.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. And yeah, I too would like to congratulate Councillor Mendoza on his maiden speech. Perhaps next time, listen to the speech you're trying to rebut before you give yours, and then it won't be so incoherent. What do you call a Reform candidate for mayor with poor grasp for statistics who isn't going to get many votes? Can't count bin face. It's a shame that Councillor Cunningham isn't here and chose not to take her speaking slot in this debate, given her previous pronouncements. Perhaps a GB News appearance where she was going to announce a 2028 election promise to bring back debtors' prisons, or perhaps to ban the taco emoji. Reform stands for civil liberties, which is why their candidate wants to ban burqas. It's only vaguely coherent in its purported benefit against gross infringement of rights, in the sense that hardly anyone actually wears a burqa in London. And to protect people's right to breathe in toxic gases and harmful particulates, she's going to abolish ULEZ. Here are some statistics inconvenient to the alternative realities currently being fabricated. London homicides are at their lowest since 2014 and down 11% on 2024. Violent crime leading to injury is falling in every London borough. The Mayor of London's Violence Reduction Unit that Councillor Small-Edwards just referred to has delivered 550,000 interventions to stop young people being drawn into gangs. And 2/3 of Londoners feel it's a safe city to live in. Nearly 4 years on, the Conservatives continue to rage against the electorate for their failure to stay in control of this council. They deride as vanity ideas the initiatives residents told us they wanted and they valued. Is Labour's 200 new CCTV cameras, after the Conservatives got rid of them, a vanity project? Is 9 new police officers funded by the council a vanity project? 8 extra ASB specialist city inspectors, the street-based intervention scheme, all vanity projects, I suppose, provided that you are utterly clueless on what leadership looks like. They are incapable of introspection, and so do the thing that comes naturally to many of them. They veer to the right. How many more MPs will they lose to reform? How many more councillors will they lose to Reform? If people vote Conservative in May, what shade of blue are they actually going to get?
What about Scribe?
The noise from the Conservatives is all an attempt to distract us from the fact.
What about Scribe?
The noise from the Conservatives is all an attempt to distract us from the fact that the Reject Party are picking at the carcass of the Conservatives like vultures. They are an organisation in absolute freefall. It would be funny. It would be funny if it weren't sad. I'm coming up to 8 years on this council, and this is very likely to be my last speech in this chamber. But prior to 2020, more than one Conservative councillor asked me privately when the Labour Party nationally was going to sort itself out so there was an effective opposition to Boris Johnson. I'll challenge them publicly now. When are you going to sort yourselves out and stop Reform from eating your lunch?
Thank you, Councillor Noble. I call Councillor Paul Fisher.
I want us all to cast our minds back to a summer's day in August 2023 when quite an effective social media campaign led to hundreds of people descending on Oxford Street with the sole aim of looting Westminster's businesses and causing chaos for visitors and residents alike. And you'll remember that it looked a lot like what we saw in the 2011 London riots, albeit on a smaller scale. Now, although there were criticisms, and justified criticisms, made of the Met Police at the time, the reality is that they were able to make the 9 arrests they did on Oxford Street and issue the 34 disposal notices that they did, precisely because they could use the key traffic artery that is Oxford Street to get emergency vehicles on site quickly. And we also know, of course, that these are exceptional events in Oxford Street's day-to-day existence. We know that more commonly what we see is theft of the person and robbery. These basic things, homicide isn't the thing, although it's very serious, that occupies the minds of most Londoners on a daily basis when they take their phones out of their pockets. It's the prospect of someone nicking their stuff from them. And the Mayor has done appallingly on this since he was elected first time around. Let's just look at the figures. 2015 to 2016, the recorded theft of the person figures from the police, 34,000. 34,000, Councillor Lilly. Look then at 2025, 103,000. Now, I appreciate there are market changes that are driving some of this, but you cannot forgive the Mayor for his appalling failure to get to grips with this problem. Now, I know that the individuals over there want to distance themselves from the Mayor because there's an election coming on the 7th of May, but it's difficult for you to do so for 2 reasons. He's your Mayor, just to remind you. Secondly, let's not forget that what once started out as a begrudging acceptance of the pedestrianisation of Oxford Street has turned into a complete surrender of the street to the Mayor of London. Every single time this Labour administration raises Oxford Street, they complain that they've moaned as much as they can in private circles and publicly. They employ tokenism at board meetings of Sadiq's new Board of Peace for Oxford Street. But nonetheless, they sign a consent order to allow the Mayor to take control of the street in September of last year. Not only that, but my colleagues, the Marylebone councillors, have highlighted, quite rightly, as well as various residents in Hyde Park, that they prevented us from raising these issues because they designated the decision as a non-key decision. Unfathomably, how on earth handing over Oxford Street to the Mayor of London, after years of it being within Westminster's control, could be a non-key decision? I wonder whether it has something to do with the fact that if it were designated a key decision, we could have called it in. And I tell you what we would have reminded you if we had called it in, that you needed a plan for action on crime. If you were going to do anything with the Mayor on Oxford Street, you needed to see from him a strategy to deal with his proposal's effects on crime and our ability to respond to it. But you didn't. Even if you assume that your so-called pragmatic approach to Oxford Street paid some dividends, which I completely deny, you should have obtained some conditions from the Mayor before you surrendered the street. You didn't even ask for a strategy on crime from the Mayor. Now, a big criticism of the Prime Minister is that whenever he negotiates, he always gets a bad deal for Britain. Well, Labour's Westminster Council doesn't even bother negotiating. They just roll over. And I think you've really got to look at yourselves on Oxford Street, because it's a classic example of where I made a clear promise. The West End councillors, unfortunately one of them has left the room, made a clear promise, and they are reneging on it. I am sticking to it, and that's why I came over this side of the room. And let me say this. I think the reality is that crime is only one facet of a deeply flawed project on Oxford Street. And we know that a Conservative administration will stand up to this Mayor of London, and it's the best thing for Westminster. More than that, I know that residents are looking forward to the opportunity to have their day of judgment on this Labour administration. And the residents of the West End, for the residents of the West End, that day of reckoning couldn't come soon enough.
Councillor Radcliffe-Ford.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. After a recent community meeting on a council estate in Pimlico, I was walking back through the estate in the dark. I heard a commotion on the stairs of a sheltered housing block. A resident had decided to tackle the incessant antisocial behaviour head-on and was arguing with a gang of youths. Knowing that our police community support officer had had his arm broken and a young man had recently been stabbed on the same estate, I was reluctant to get involved, but I couldn't walk on by. I put on my council ID and started to climb the stairs to whatever I might find. Thankfully, my presence was enough to disperse the offenders. Far from being grateful, though, the resident then turned on me. She was angry at how long she had been forced to deal with this day in and day out. The council are well aware that this area is an issue. Security gates have been planned for years, but due to bureaucracy and human error, are yet to be seen. She wasn't angry at me personally, she was angry at years of being ignored. That moment sums up what crime in Pimlico feels like right now. People forced to confront problems alone while the system fails to catch up. I remember a review I had when working at Tesco. I walked in feeling pretty confident that I could justify having hit my objectives. My boss was Buki Adebayeni, a very charismatic and direct lady. She explained to me that it didn't matter if I had hit my objectives, if the outcome those objectives were designed to achieve had not materialized. I left the review with a simmering anger, a few amber ratings, and an incredibly valuable lesson for life. Targets don't matter if outcomes don't change. This is unfortunately where the scorecard sits for those in charge of this council, this city, and this country, an amber rating. You may be achieving your internally set objectives, but the reality on the street is not improving, it's getting worse. It is now a common sight in Pimlico to see parents pulling children out of the way as masked bikers ride down the pavement, dealers hanging out on street corners unchallenged, and graffiti tags sprayed on buildings. This is people claiming their turf, and it is easily done, as 9 new police officer posts across Westminster will not cut it. The council employs over 3,000 staff. As we saw earlier, it's about being present and identifiable on the streets, and crucially, not being outnumbered by offenders. Visible enforcement would stop tents popping up across Pimlico, from Elizabeth Bridge to Grosvenor Road. It would stop the brazen shoplifting, and it would stop our council estates and dark corners being the locations of choice to get high. Pimlico Tube is a perfect example of everything that's going wrong. Before you even arrive, you pass what used to be a training academy for estate agents, which gave active frontage during an extended working day. This has been replaced, losing the associated revenue to the council, with a community hub that is rarely open. Long gone are the smartly dressed office workers, and now we have hand-drawn signs stuck to the windows of an all but derelict building. In the alley behind, you may catch a drug deal as you pass. When you cross the road to the tube, you will be greeted by one of our local street pop asking you for change. If at this point you aren't met with a shuttered station due to lack of staff, you can walk down to the main ticket hall. On your left will be more rough sleepers asking for money, and for more than a month you could then walk down to the tube as the escalator has been out of action. Helpful advice for those less able to walk is to go to Victoria or Vauxhall instead. We report the issues to the police, and the police do their best to move people on, but the council is doing little to explore new ideas, to help tackle the problems, and has made things worse by removing active frontages. At every stage, proposals to improve this have been raised and dismissed. Like the lady mentioned at the beginning of my speech, many people in Pimlico are left feeling forgotten by those elected to lead them. People in Pimlico are not asking for miracles. They are asking to be seen, to be protected, and to matter. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Adam Hugg.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. We know concerns around crime and antisocial behaviour matter to people in Westminster because feeling safe is essential to enjoying life here to its fullest. Labour made Council's action on antisocial behaviour and crime the main business of its business in the autumn, and it's been a theme that has now been returned to on a number of occasions by the Conservatives, where we've heard a long list of understandable concerns, but absolutely nothing to suggest they have a single new idea about how to address the problems that they raise. Because you're 3 months out from election, you could retell the electorate. The Conservatives' recent record in office was clear. Under their administration, the number of city inspectors went down. They opened with much fanfare the Integrated Street Enforcement Unit, then forgot about it, letting the team shrink to almost nothing before closing it down when they went out the door in 2022. They closed it down, despite the warm words you hear about it since. And as full council knows full well, the Conservatives let the council CCTV system crumble and then closed it down, leaving Westminster the only borough in inner London without one. That's their record on the council working and enforcement. Yet they seem to call anything new that this council has been trying to do to tackle the problem a vanity idea. So let's look at some of the Labour initiatives that the opposition is labelling as vanity projects. The formation of new multidisciplinary teams to fight crime. The police and council tasking team, or PACT, and the street-based intervention team are providing more police and council officers on our streets, something our residents have been crying out for, something the opposition talk about but never did. Through our PACT team, the council is directly funding both 9 new specialist ASB city inspectors alongside 9 new Met officers, working together with our neighbourhood coordinators to make our streets safer. They are in post now, full complement by the end of the month, getting out, helping our streets. Don't take our word that this is a good thing. Take the word of Wandsworth Tories, who are putting out leaflets across their borough saying that every other council should follow suit. So, yeah, I mean, so occasionally some Tories have the right idea. The SBIT is bringing together intelligence gathering, council enforcement, and specialist rough sleeping outreach support. They've issued around 100 community protection warnings and notices on people committing persistent ASB in the Victoria and Pimlico areas. And we know that while residents say there is still a long way to go to make themselves feeling safer, from the stakeholder meetings we hold on a quarterly basis, residents are saying that a tide appears to have turned. These new enforcement teams, combined with more regular city inspectors, is what's enabled the council to drive forward the use of public spaces protection orders far beyond anything that the previous council had put in place. For example, our new cars and pedicab PSPO across the city have led to the introduction of almost 500 fines so far. And the enforcement of the ASB PSPO, which gives our officers powers to crack down on drug taking, public urination and verbal abuse in South Westminster, is already helping to make a difference. And we're in the final stages of the consultation that will allow these powers to be deployed across the city by March. And we have CCTV. Our new public CCTV programme has captured over around 500 live incidents over the last 3 months, which resulted in 43 arrests in the moment between October and December last year. On top of that, there were 300 additional download requests by the police to gather evidence to enable more arrests, and a further 192 downloads for council enforcement, such as taking action against fly tipping, where we've seen progress begin from both an increased enforcement both from the police and council officers in places like Warwick Avenue. These numbers are growing as we deepen the working relationship with the police to use this new resource more effectively. And our housing teams are taking action to revitalise their CCTV too.
And the parties opposite take a lot of time talking about the Mayor of London. But let's be clear, Sadiq's investment has seen 80 extra police officers in the West End, beginning to turning the tide on phone theft and other crimes. That extra resource has helped us reduce the amount of abstractions from ward teams across Westminster 2 weeks ago. We've heard more in the upcoming budget about more money for neighbourhood policing and more resource to tackle phone thefts in the West End. So we're clear there's an awful lot more to do. But this Labour Council is stepping up to take action to keep our residents safe. So I have some clear questions for the Conservatives. If you were elected in May, would you now keep Labour's CCTV? Yes or no? Will you back our uplift in CT inspectors and keep the new SBIT and PAC teams? Yes or no? Are you going to cut local enforcement like you did when you were in power last time? Or are these vanity projects that you keep vaguely talking about? The vanity project I remember was the Conservatives pouring £34 million down the drain on Oxford Street Consultants and the Marble Arch Mound. We will keep fighting hard to make our city safer, improve dignity, fairness and accountability. And while we sit on the side of the agenda, this chamber, both now and after May, that's exactly what we'll continue to do to keep the people of Westminster safe.
Thank you. Councillor Melvyn Kapler.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Anybody who thinks there's an election in about 3.5 months' time in terms of what's been going on tonight, let's be very clear. This is one of the most important issues for this council and most important issues for the residents of this city. There's no question about that. The real question I have to the Labour ruling group is that you've been in power for the best part of 4 years, and with power comes responsibility. But you don't seem to be willing to take responsibility, because responsibility is about not just claiming all the good things were down to you, but it's actually claiming ownership of the things that aren't working as well. And you don't ever seem willing to do that. I mean, Warwick Avenue was just mentioned a few moments ago, and I have to bring this one up. Councillor Dean and I complained about this on a daily basis for the best part of a month, all published, all in writing, all documented. We asked for CCTV cameras to be put there. And for the best part of a month, nobody did anything about it. We said day after day, why are you not capturing the images? Because literally every day there was fly tipping taking place. And that's the question. You can have 200 CCTV cameras, but if you've only got about 3 operators looking at those and many hundreds of other cameras, then the effectiveness has to be questioned. We're not going to say on this side CCTV is a bad idea. We're not saying that at all. But what we do say is that the way in which you have rolled them out and the way in which you're using them is not actually working very well. I've had numerous situations where I've told officers time after time about particular incidents and asked whether these things have been captured on CCTV and asked people to look at the CCTV, and they don't do so for weeks on end. We all know what our residents care about, because I don't care about the interruptions, it's fine, I can talk over them anytime. Not a problem at all. I will. Thank you very much, Councillor Noble. They will not stop me. Nothing does on these sort of things. So we have a scenario where we know what the issues are, because many of us have knocked on hundreds and hundreds of doors. And it's very clear. Of course we welcome reduction in murder rates. Yes, of course we welcome reductions in serious crime. But all the time, what people are telling us, as many of our colleagues have said already, mobile phone theft is growing and growing. The statistics don't lie. People talk about shoplifting. It happens on a daily basis across all our wards. We also know, and I see it myself, and I'm sure you do if you walk around your wards, drug dealing is happening 24/7 throughout all our streets. I see it outside where I live, I see it when I walk down the road, I see it when I go down to the shops. And people care about these issues. And you're going to be judged in 3.5 months, whether you like it or not, on how effective you have been. No amount of press releases, no amounts of social media, and you're all over social media about all these wonderful things or whatever. I can tell you, because I've talked to a lot of people, people don't believe and don't accept that you are doing a good job. We will find out in 3.5 months' time. As Councillor Fisher was saying earlier on, you can say all you like about Oxford Street, but let's be very clear. You've rolled over. It's absolutely a matter of fact. You're not accepting, again, responsibility. It's not your fault. Okay, it's the mayor. Well, you know, the mayor happens to belong to your political party. He's been in charge for the best part of 10 years. And what has he done about the crime that's going on, and what have you done to try and get him to be good to his responsibilities? You can say, oh, well, we've employed an extra 9 police officers. What have you actually done about getting the mayor to stand up, who's actually in charge of policing in Westminster, to actually put full resource across Westminster? In my own ward and many of my colleagues' wards, you never see a single police officer patrolling our streets. And what our residents care about, and they tell us this all the time, is seeing police on the beat patrolling our streets. We don't see it. You're papering over the cracks, and the reality is our residents are telling this on a daily basis. Adam, you know, you can say all you want that you're going to stand on your record, and we're delighted that you're going to stand on your record, because your record over the last 4 years is an abysmal failure in relation to crime and keeping people safe. That's what residents are telling us. Now, you might not believe them, but I can assure you in 3.5 months' time, on May the 8th, when the results are counted, you will find out that what we're saying is really important. This is what our residents are telling us, and what you're saying about all the wonderful things you're doing. People don't believe a word, and they'll vote for us, and you'll be out of office on May the 8th.
Thank you. I now call on Councillor Aisha to respond
Thank
to the
you,
debate.
Lord Mayor. Listening to the party opposite, you'd think that crime started in 2022, and we've done nothing about it since then. The reality is this administration has invested more into public safety and support for vulnerable people than ever before. We know vandalism, noise, theft and drug dealing can have a huge impact on the lives of residents and visitors trying to go about their day. Everyone should be able to enjoy public spaces, feel safe in their homes and in their communities. And I will highlight our so-called vanity projects again. I'm proud to say that the evidence shows our investment in CCTV, PSPOs and more uniformed officers are achieving real results. We are well on the way to delivering a safer and fairer Westminster. Only today, Wandsworth Council are singing our praises and wanting to use our best practice about police officers in their own authority and looking at options. Our key to approach has been to the introduction of the public space protection orders. In areas where persistent behaviour impacts public safety, we are giving the police and city inspectors more of the tools they need to issue spot fines and clamp down on disruptive conduct. Following the launch of our on-street order, officers now have additional powers to respond to verbal abuse, drug taking, public urination and other inappropriate acts in South Westminster. Our consultation on the city-wide order is currently live and ends on the 25th of January. I would encourage all of you and your residents and businesses to have their say and really shape our policy going forward. The second PSPO, which came into force last year, expanded our nuisance vehicle order to now include the West End. This has had real results. Last year, over 400 fines were issued across 3 wards and 335 penalty notices have been paid so far.
But they're still coming, Aisha.
Yes, I know. It isn't stopping, but we're not trying to raise money. We're trying to raise awareness that actually that behaviour is not tolerable in our city. And by giving people fines, it will raise awareness and people will get the message eventually. Can I finish my speech, please? Thank you. The Met are using the footage we collect for further prosecution. The expansion has been welcomed by residents in Soho and Mayfair, who we know have had to put up with boy races for too long. Our third new PSPO, targeting antisocial pedicab drivers, was launched in November. 191 fixed penalty notices have already been issued and 79 penalty notices have been paid so far. So I'm proud to say that public space protection orders work and behaviour is changing. Whether it's through the drafting of enforcement powers or providing support to vulnerable people to reduce reoffending, we are working closely with our partners to respond in a targeted way to crime and ASB. We know residents appreciate seeing a uniform presence. Under this administration, I am proud to say Westminster has more officers, frequent patrols and safer streets. The street-based intervention team, launched in Victoria last year, has issued nearly 100 community protection orders, warnings and notices. And through PACT, the council will soon be has funded 9 Met officers serving alongside 9 city inspectors with sole focus on targeting ASB in Westminster. Their tasking is based on the feedback we receive from our residents and businesses on where support is needed most. The PAC team will have full access to the CT network we have implemented, provided a joined-up approach to public protection. So far, we have 4 of our officers in post, and we will be at full complement by next month. We've restored the CCTV network over the last 2 years and are continuing to invest in areas where cameras are still needed. The camera locations are proposed by local teams in consultation with ward councillors, which all of you should attend and feed into that process as much as possible, and each position is reviewed after 26 weeks. Since October, more than 500 incidents have been caught on our cameras, and 43 occasions our footage has led to arrests. Recently, 3 multi-robbery suspects were arrested as a direct result of our footage. So again, the bold actions we've taken has led to results. All our cameras are AI-enabled but not switched on. The council will work with our CCTV specialists to understand the risks and opinions of stakeholders in using any techniques in the future. Lord Mayor, we know the impact crime and antisocial behaviour can have on communities. It is the most important issue for residents and therefore the most important issue for us. Our actions show how seriously we take this responsibility, and the results say our interventions are working. Yet we are not and will never be complacent, as the introduction of our new cameras and PSPOs show. So, Lord Mayor, what are we delivering? Safer streets, firmer penalties for ASB, more police officers, and a strategy led by what residents want. And that is what a fairer Westminster is.
Thank you. That concludes the debate on the item chosen by the opposition group and the party business for this evening. We now move to voting on the 3 reports listed on the agenda. The first vote is on the recommendation in the report listed under Agenda Item 11 and entitled Adoption of the City Plan Partial Review. The recommendation is deemed to have been moved and seconded. By a show of hands, can I ask those in favour to show their hands? Those against? Those abstaining? I declare the recommendation approved. We will now move to the vote on the recommendations of the report listed under Agenda Item 12 and entitled Council Tax Discounts, brackets including Council Tax Local Reduction Scheme, close brackets, and the Council Tax Base Report. The recommendations are deemed to have been moved and seconded. By a show of hands, can I ask those in favour? That's it. I declare the recommendation approved. We'll now move to the vote on the recommendations of the report listed under Agenda Item 13 and entitled Constitutional Matters Review of Political Balance. The recommendation is deemed to have been moved and seconded. By a show of hands, can I ask those in favour? Those against? Those abstaining? I declare the recommendation approved. Before I conclude the meeting, I would like to inform the Council that this is the last meeting at which Parveen Akhtar will be in attendance as Executive Director of Corporate Services. On behalf of the Council and you here tonight, I would like to thank Parveen for her service since 2021, for her guidance, for her advice, and for her good nature, whatever the circumstances. Parveen is moving back up north, and we wish her well in whatever turn her career takes her in the future. Councillor Hogg, Councillor Swaddle, would you like to say a few words?
I mean, Lord Mayor, you have, I think, articulated, the views of both, I believe both groups very effectively. Thank you, Paveen, for your service to the city, particularly in your role as monitoring officer and support to this meeting, but also your support as Executive Director of Corporate Services and everything that you've done for the city. And I know it's been hugely appreciated, and we wish you all the best in the future. Thank you.
I was lucky enough to be on the panel that interviewed Parveen, and I was very pleased with her appointment, and I think she's done a fantastic job since she's been here, and her advice to all councillors across both parties has been helpful, measured and appropriate throughout, and I'd like to thank her very much for her service.
And on that cross-party note, I conclude the meeting for this evening. Thank you all and good night.